おはようございます。11月4日水曜日、カリフォルニア時間で11時です。先ほどまで、別のストリーミングビデオで4チャンネルを見ていただいたんですが、CBS LA で、また引き続きニュースが行われています。昨日から夜通し各ローカルチャンネル、ナショナルチャンネルがテレビで、ずっとノンストップで選挙の模様を伝えています。まだ確定ではないけども、確実に結果へと近づいている感じです。
The vote counting continues today and could keep going for several more days as battleground states process a record-setting amount of votes. That's what normally happens in elections. People vote, we count the votes, and then there's a winner and there's a loser. Democratic nominee Joe Biden has pulled ahead in the upper Midwest states of Wisconsin and Michigan. Joe Biden is on track to win this election, and he will be the next president of the United States. While Pennsylvania still has about 8 million votes left to be counted. Of them in Democratic-friendly areas. Pennsylvania is the real key here. I think Pennsylvania could take a couple more days to count all of those ballots. A lot of them are coming from Philadelphia and suburbs of Philadelphia. While election officials are calling for patience, President Trump is calling for a halt to the vote counting. The president tweeted this morning, "Last night I was leading solidly in many key states. Then one by one, we started to magically disappear as surprise ballot dumps were counted. Very strange." Last night he said he would fight for vote counts. We'll be going to the Supreme Court. We want all voting to stop. The Biden campaign responded, saying if the president makes good on his threat to go to court to try to prevent the proper tabulation of votes, we have legal teams standing by, ready to deploy to resist that effort. Now, the Trump campaign has already said that they will demand a recount. What will happen in Wisconsin. We also just got this latest bit of information that says that the Trump campaign will host a press conference in Pennsylvania, Philadelphia to be specific, with the president's sons and members of his campaign. So it'll be interesting to see what happens there as this race obviously started contentious, but even more so as we get to day 2 in this election. We're also expecting to hear from Biden any moments now as well. Stella, before you go, can you talk about both campaigns' perspective on the final push to 207? Right, so the Biden team feels as though they have a clear path because they like the numbers that they're seeing from Wisconsin as well as Michigan. Now, what will happen in Georgia, I think, is a big determining factor there. It's also the same reason why the president feels as though he has a clear path to 270. As I mentioned, they are going to demand a recount in Wisconsin. They also feel as though there are some irregularities that happened in Arizona, a state that we have reported at CBS that's projected likely to go to Joe Biden. So it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out here. And then, of course, what happens in Pennsylvania in the days to come. Talk about a nail biter. That's an understatement, isn't it? All right, Scholar, thank you, and good to see you at the White House. We appreciate it. Meantime, voters had a lot of propositions to wade through on this year's ballot. We get to start this as live at the county registrar's office in Norwalk with how some of the most contested initiatives are faring. Good morning to you.
Good morning, DeMarco. Voters here in LA County have a lot of choices to make other than who our next president will be. And officials here at the registrar recorder's office, while they're busy today, making sure that all those results are tallied up correctly. This year's unprecedented pandemic election led to historic numbers of folks voting early across California and relatively short wait times to vote on election day.
15 minutes.
The process is very easy. They vote about 10 minutes. LA County's registrar recorder's office received an overwhelming percentage of their ballots early. So they say those had already largely been processed and were ready to tally right when the polls closed. Now they're working to confirm the semi-official results released overnight. They also say there are still thousands of outstanding votes that need to be counted, including vote-by-mail ballots that came in yesterday and provisional ballots. Let's give you a closer look now at how some big statewide propositions are faring. Voters appear to have passed Prop 22 by a wide margin. It classifies app-based drivers as independent contractors. The Yes campaign, led by Uber and Lyft, was the most expensive in state history, spending more than $225 million. Under it, drivers will stay classified as independent contractors, but will be entitled to benefits like minimum earnings and healthcare subsidies. Proposition 15, property tax measure, which would have raised billions of dollars for schools and local services, is losing by a narrow margin. It would essentially exclude larger value properties from Prop 13. Prop 21, which would have expanded rent control in the state, got a big thumbs down from voters. And supporters of Prop 19, which would give new property tax breaks to homeowners 55 years of age or older, holding on to its lead at the top. And Tabaka giving you a live look at the official ballot drop box right in front of this office. It is sealed. You can no longer put a ballot in there. We actually just saw someone walk up and try to do so. So at this point, again, all votes have to be cast. What's happening here today, just the counting, the retallying of them, and we're told by officials here that the next update from them should be the people.
The last person was a daily dollar short with that, but I got to think of her.
Yeah. Meanwhile, DeMarco, a dramatic turnaround in the race for LA County District Attorney. Jackie Lacey appears to have lost her bid to hold on to her seat to challenger George Gascon. CBS 2's Tina Patel is live in downtown LA with reaction. Tina, good morning. Good morning, activists with Black Lives Matter Los Angeles are going to be holding a victory party here this afternoon. They say they have been pushing for criminal justice reform for years. They say this election results is just a step.
We have decency involved. We have compassion and redemption involved.
That's how George Gascon described his victory against incumbent District Attorney Jackie Lacey last night as a call to fundamentally change the criminal justice system in this county and this country.
I can tell you that I cannot be more proud of being part of this movement. It's a national movement that LA hopefully will also be part of.
When Lacey was elected DA in 2012, it was historic. She was the first woman and the first African American to hold the office. But activists criticized Lacey for being too close to law enforcement and unwilling to hold officers accountable for their use of deadly force. For years, they have protested outside her office and home, leading to a tense confrontation with their armed husband earlier this year. When Gascon first entered the race, the former San Francisco DA trailed Lacey significantly in the polls. The support for him and his calls for criminal justice reform grew after the death of George Floyd this summer. Last night, when it looked like Gascon's voice prevailed, demonstrators took to the streets once again. LAPD says they ended up arresting about 40 people for blocking train tracks and failing to disperse. Now, although activists are celebrating today, they have already said on social media that their next job is to hold George Gascon accountable when he gets to office to make sure that he keeps the promises he made during this campaign. Again, we'll put that together. What a change. Thank you so much, Tina. In the race for LA County Supervisor in the 2nd District, Holly Mitchell has the lead over Herb Lyson.
All right, we have more results in our team coverage of election 2020.
Here in Orange County, folks aren't just talking about the results, they're talking about the process. As the district attorney's office is now investigating the possibility of election interference, I'm going to explain. And look for warmer temperatures this afternoon and tomorrow. We will be well above average before we cool things off. We talk about rain this weekend. Let's details ahead.
Get the CBS Los Angeles app on any device. Mobile news, sports, weather, video on demand. And CBS in LA. All in just one tap. Download now. CBS 2 News is sponsored by the Good Feet Store, offering foot, leg, and back pain relief.
Make your holidays happen at Ross. You don't have to spend a lot to give a lot. You set the holidays and keep that cute with the best parties ever. Say yes for less. New stories, North Compton.
Without my 50s, I would not be able to do this. Remember, I mean, I get
Look, 50 years fit. What was that like? Yes.
So we should be by now with Odin.
We just call 833-2-PONY or go online to Pony.
Homeowners, ready for some good news? Interest rates continue to drop to near all-time lows. Spring Plus is now able to offer a rock-bottom 15-year fix at just 1.875% rate, 2.14% APR, and a 30-year fix at just 2.25% rate, 2.402% APR with no lender fees. We'll pay your title tax and appraisal fees. You could save thousands. Call Spring Plus now, 800-836-3662. That's 800-836-3662. This year has been a pandemic year. Children are hurting all over the world. People are afraid, families are scared. People have lost their jobs. They don't know where to go, what to do. They don't know what hope they have for the future. Well, I want every child to know that God loves them, that God has not forgotten them, and that He cares for them very much. And then they pack a shoebox and send it to Operation Christmas Child. They give this opportunity to give that box to a child and do it in Jesus' name. Can you just imagine the hope and the thrill and the joy when a kid opens up a lid like this and all these toys are in it? It's an incredible gift. And so I just want to say thank you. We need your help this year more than we've ever needed. If we lost the pandemic, this just don't create a lot more opportunities. We always need more shoeboxes. So keep packing. Visit our website, AmericanFirst.org. Whichever how you can pack shoeboxes and share the hope of Jesus Christ with children this year.
Make your holidays happen at Ross. You don't have to spend a lot to give a lot. You set the holidays and He's got you with the best bargain ever. Say yes for less. Your store is North Southfield. Have you ever had to choose this? No. Okay.
Welcome back, everyone. In Orange County, officials are investigating a possible fake voting center at reports of ballots being flashed.
CBS 2's Joy Benedict has the latest from Santa Ana this morning. Joy.
Hey, that's right, guys. Certainly alarming allegations. But let's be clear, Orange County had a wonderful turnout. 73% of voters here in the county showed up, with more than 1 million utilizing those mail-in ballots that were handed to them. But now the district attorney's office has opened an investigation into what's called interference, election interference, not because of how folks handed over their ballots, but who they have been collecting them.
Community
activists turned into watchdogs yesterday.
So we just discovered a fake voting center right now in Orange County.
As social media lit up with allegations of election interference in Westminster. Signs saying vote here were clear, and activists claim ballots were thrown away.
Everybody was in the box.
It happened outside the business of local council member Kimberly Lowe, as volunteers were clearly collecting ballots.
If they are collected, obviously, from Trump about a local official ballots drop off.
The Office of Orange County District Attorney Tom Spitzer showed up to investigate.
It was an official envelope from the registrar, but it was actually outside of the envelope that the secret ballot. So everybody just started getting it.
What was going on is the process known as ballot harvesting, something that is legal in the state of California. But if you help someone fill out a ballot or drop it off, the mail-in ballot envelope must be filled out safely.
Third party, I can know my father-daughter's ballot that each county candidate or an operative of a campaign be there while somebody is counting their ballot. That was considered under the influence and improper.
Although Spitzer says it doesn't appear the group threw out any ballots, that doesn't mean that everything done at the office promoting Republican Kimberly Lowe was legal.
You want somebody lobbying and advocating at the time that somebody's going on the ballot.
His office plans to continue its investigation to make sure every ballot was handled properly and, of course, counted.
We have to know what the process was, which is involved the law. It's not only important for this election, it's important for all other elections as well.
Now, if a candidate or a candidate's representative did, in fact, help someone fill out a ballot, it is a violation of election code, which is a misdemeanor punishable by a fine or up to 6 months in jail. Guys?
All right, Joy, thank you for that report. Meanwhile, concerns remain about possible election.
Up next, we'll show you the special precautions being taken in Hollywood today.
And weather changes on the way to the southwest. Now, forecast is ahead.
We're also keeping you safe. The good times are back. Homeowners mortgage rates continue to drop and are at near all-time lows. True Mortgage is now offering a 15-year fixed at just 1.875% rate, 2.15% APR, or a 30-year fixed at just 2.25% rate, 2.4% APR, with no lender fees, no title fees, escrow fees, or appraisal fees. Call True Mortgage now to see how much money you can save, but hurry because these low rates won't last forever. Call 800-514-2126 or visit gettruemortgage.com. Millions of customers are leaving their providers and switching to Spectrum. And if you have satellite, it's not hard to see why. Because unlike satellite, Spectrum gives you all the services you need, like internet and TV from one provider. They do? Yeah, they do. And Spectrum has the fastest download speeds with most reliable performance. Get Spectrum in with speed at 200 megabits for $44.99 a month. Call 833-909-4499. Spectrum turns on TV too. Unlike satellite, Spectrum doesn't have monthly dish to install. And you get exclusive premium original content with Spectrum Original. Wow, really? Really? Plus, Spectrum has 4 free HD, free on demand. Get Spectrum TV for $44.99 a month. Call 833-909-4499. And unlike satellite providers, Spectrum doesn't have contracts or early termination fees. They can buy out your current contract for $500. Switch to America's fastest growing internet, TV, and voice provider. Get Spectrum Internet and TV for $44.99 a month each. Ask about our easy $7. Call 833-909-4499.
Did you know that United Healthcare is introducing a new HMO POS Medicare Advantage plan in Southern California? Hi, I'm Jennifer Woods with your local Southern California Medicare team. I want to invite you to work with me and my team of Medicare agents to help you find and enroll in the Medicare plan that best meets your needs. I'm proud to offer Southern California's $0 premium Medicare Advantage plan that includes medical, prescription drug coverage, and more. Plus, access to a large number of local providers and benefits that can help you with a healthier life. We also have plans for people on both Medi-Cal and Medicare and military veterans. And we can help you learn about Medicare supplement insurance and Part D prescription plans. On behalf of my Southern California team, I want you to know that your health and safety is our top priority. We're here to help you anytime in person, over the phone, or online. Call today at 1-800-299-5422 or visit uhccanhealth.com to take advantage of the Medicare Advantage plan from United Healthcare.
It's the Chargers' newest team. You might think it's only wrong to cheer on the team. That's just part of it. He's also in charge of inspecting the equipment, overseeing the team roster, and inspiring the players. But most important, he is trained to be a service dog for a person with disabilities. Follow both on Instagram, Chargers.com, and PBSLA.com. Because, yeah, both on too. All right, welcome back, everyone. We continue to follow the biggest story of the day, the race to the White House. The Electoral College is now at 2.4 for Biden, 217 for Trump. The ultimate goal is 270, and what I think things have changed by the second, very clear change by throughout the day.
And buildings were not the only thing boarded up over fears over election-related violence in SoCal this week. Donald Trump's Walk of Fame star was vandalized last week for at least the fourth time over the past few years. So the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce covered it with plywood and surrounded it with guardrails. But have a look at this video from TMZ of a man in a suit hammering away at the star early last Friday. The suspect, James Otis, later turned himself in. He's charged with felony vandalism, the same charges he faced previously after admitting he wrecked himself.
Here's a look at the balance of power for the U.S. Senate as it stands right now. According to CBS News, Democrats have 46 seats, Republicans have 47, and there are still 7 races that need to be decided. Democrats are projected to retain control of the House and remain to be seen. However, if the Democrats majority will change before leaders.
Let's take a look at some of the local congressional races that we're tracking. District 39 of Buena Park, Diamond Bar, and Yorba Linda. It's really close. Young Kim has 134,556 votes, just a few hundred more than Gil Cisneros. This is with 85% of people reporting, so anything can happen. 45th District of Irvine, Anaheim Hills, and Mission Viejo. Democrat Katie Porter leads solidly with 100% of precincts reporting with 54% of the vote. Greg Rapp at 46. And remember, for continuing coverage of election 2020, keep it here on CBS 2 News. You'll get the latest information anytime at cbsla.com. You can also download our CBS LA app.
I was actually reading a speech where someone said that the election time in our version.
Yeah, Victor is
waiting and watching for every thing at the same time. What is better than that? I think it's going to give us a break from everything that's going on, and hopefully that's good news for us.
I was going to say, let's all take a big breath. Let's take a deep breath. Go outside. Good idea. Today, we are warm though. Temperatures will continue to warm up as we head into this afternoon. That is all thanks to a shift in our wind patterns. So we've got those northeasterly winds, and that is definitely helping to warm us up, especially inland. So we are feeling almost 90 degrees in the Santa Clarita Valley at this hour. Upper 70s as we head downtown Orange County. Good morning. We are looking at temperatures in the lower 70s in Newport Beach. But as we head inland, the Inland Empire, well, temperatures are in the 80s at this hour. 88 in Riverside, 87 in the Laredo Valley, and 60 up in Big Bear City. So take a look at the temperature change from what we saw this time 24 hours ago. We're about 10 degrees warmer in Long Beach to downtown, 11 degrees warmer, as well as in Burbank. So almost all areas seeing warming from this time yesterday. Again, that is all thanks to a push of offshore flow, so northeasterly winds and a wind pattern that is helping to warm us up from the valley, even out towards the coast as we head into this afternoon. So you can expect temperatures in the upper 80s to even lower 90s, inland 90s here in Santa Clarita. Mid-80s east of the mountains of Lancaster, as we have the Ventura County along the coast, temperatures in the lower 70s in Oxnard, upper 70s in Camarillo, and mid-60s up in Big Bear City. So you expect warming through tomorrow. Temperatures will be well above average as we head into tomorrow. And then major changes headed our way as we head into Friday and into this weekend as an area of low pressure, a very cold one at that, drops down from the north, and this is going to bring us a major change in temperatures. We're dropping about 20 degrees in some areas as we head into the weekend. So we're going to be going from 90s in some areas over the next 2 days to 70s and then 60s to the 60s as we head into this weekend. So again, all this cold air coming down from the north, we even have the potential for some scattered showers as we head into this weekend. Snow levels dropping down to around 5,500 feet. So we're taking a very sharp turn as we head into the next few days. So here's a look at the extended forecast. We've got lower 80s on tap this afternoon. That turns into upper 80s to maybe even lower 90s as we head into tomorrow, dropping it all the way down to the 70s by Friday. Let's look for more clouds too as we head toward the end of the week, and then the potential for some wet weather as we forecast by Saturday into Sunday. The winds will pick up as well. So if you are hoping for the fall-like weather, well, we are almost there. As we head into this weekend, we'll have clear skies to start the week. The temperature stay on the cooler side. Back to you.
All right, thank you.
Stay with us. We will be right back.
First, let's go also to get a little bit of this there. The Dow is in positive territory today for
The Los Angeles Dodgers have won their first World Series championship in 32 years. BigTimeBats.com is releasing these official Dodgers World Series championship bats. These full-size bats are available for purchase individually or in special bat sets. Each bat is of a limited edition and start at $129.95. Go to BigTimeBats.com to purchase your piece of Dodgers history now.
What if people with type 1 diabetes have the power to manage their condition without finger sticks? To always know their glucose level and where they're heading with just a glance at their smart device. The power to make treatment decisions, to customize alerts and alarms to help keep them in reach. The power to lower their A1C. All this knowledge powered by a small wearable. The Dexcom G6.
At Leaf Filter, we're on a never-ending journey to end gutter cleaning forever. Whoa! Way too dangerous, Will. Way too clogged. Leaf Filter, the nation's #1 rated gutter protection system, will keep you safe and protect your home. We guarantee you'll never have to clean those nasty gutters again. Everybody okay with that? Home, we're going live to your free gutter inspection and act now and save 15% on your purchase. Attention, anyone on Medicare. The Medicare annual enrollment period is now open. You may now be eligible for additional Medicare-approved benefits, including free hearing aids, free eyeglasses, and free home prescription delivery.
We've been hearing about newer plans with additional benefits and want to make sure that we're getting all the benefits we're entitled to.
You could be eligible for a Medicare Advantage plan with no copays, no deductibles, and no monthly premiums. That's no and then zero. Is it true that you don't automatically get additional benefits? That's right. Call now to instantly find out if you're eligible for a plan that includes additional benefits. You don't get these automatically, so call for your free no-obligation review. Just call 800-604-1188 now before the deadline to find out if you're eligible for additional benefits. There is no obligation to enroll. The call and Medicare benefits review are absolutely free. Call 800-604-1188. That's 800-604-1188.
The role of a journalist is to bring Americans greater understanding. We have to make sure that we're right, that we're fair, but also hopefully bring Americans closer together. That's why I wanted to become a journalist.
All right, folks, let's take one more look at where we stand at the college of Biden with 227 votes there. Arizona, Nevada, Michigan, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin power. The ultimate goal is to get to 270, get to 270 here in the electoral college. All is lost for what?
Yes, and so many people turned out to the polls yesterday. I'm sure everybody's dying to know what's going to happen, and we'll bring it to you as soon as it comes in. Thanks for watching CBS 2 News at 11 a.m.
Hope is dead because no one's watching. Hope is a reason to disturb the peace. Hope is laughter. At Stanley Steeman, we love home, and we know that a clean home is a healthy home. We're ready when you are. Why are so many people switching their Medicare coverage to Kaiser Permanente Senior Advantage? Is it because there's 0 monthly premium and 0 annual deductible and 0 copays for preventive care? Or because you get quality care and affordable coverage that also includes prescription drug coverage? Maybe it's because you can visit your doctor, get tests, and refill prescriptions. Often in one convenient location, or because you get your choice of all available Kaiser Permanente doctors and all available doctors, even specialists welcome Kaiser Permanente Medicare Health Plan members. Or is it because Kaiser Permanente Medicare Health is rated 5 out of 5 stars in California for 10 years in a row? That's Medicare's highest possible rate.
Call 1-877-259-6946 and get your free Kaiser Permanente Guide to Medicare. That's 1-877-259-6946.
Think it's too expensive to pay off your home? With Great Loans to present it may be more affordable than you think. Get a 15-year fixed rate mortgage for just 1.875% rate at 2.142% APR. With rates like this, why would you refinance again? At Black Choice Funding, we'll customize your loan so you can be mortgage free within 180 months. Call Black Choice Funding now. 844-933-4343. 844-933-4343. Or visit BlackChoiceFunding.com.
What's keeping you from a better Medicare Advantage experience?
Just a scan plan.
We're here to make your life easier.
We will be there when you have it.
We cover your prescription. We cover your doctor. We cover your hospital. You only need one plan. Get comprehensive coverage, including many $0 copays, with more extras and importantly service. Expect more from your Medicare Advantage plan. Look for the 2021 benefits brochure in the mail or online. For a better Medicare Advantage experience, call Stan or your local agent today.
At Stanley Steeman, we love home. It's why we started cleaning another 7 years ago, and why we still continue today. Whatever home needs to do, we're ready when you are to make sure your state is clean, and that you're the ones you care about most. Safe. CBS News, we're on your side. What are you doing, Chucky?
こちらはとうとう の番組に変わってしまいました。チャンネル4はどうでしょうか。はい。NBC はまだ放送を続けていますが、CBS はソープオペラに変わりました。
Mainly by Democrats trying to overtake Susan Collins, where she's a long-running member of the Senate. She's long been serving Republican woman in the U.S. Senate, and they thought she might be vulnerable this time around because she is moderate, and maybe she wasn't close enough to Donald Trump to draw the upstate, the northern part of Maine, to her side. But as it turns out, Senator Collins is she's been already Surrogates.
All right, thank you for that. And if you just missed it a moment ago, NBC projected Wisconsin will fall into the Joe Biden column with Joe Biden the apparent winner in Wisconsin. Let me go to Cal Perry right now, who is in Milwaukee. Cal, anyway, it's like a far more narrow margin than I think a lot of people, including the Biden folks, headed this year.
Oh, absolutely. Look, this mirrors what we saw 4 years ago when Hillary Clinton lost by 20,000 votes, and we know that that was traumatic as an understatement to the Democratic Party. Everybody remembers that, and there was this vow to take the state more seriously. Joe Biden has visited here 3 times in his general election campaign. We shouldn't forget that DNC, the Democratic National Convention, was supposed to be here in Milwaukee, so the party put a premium on this state. They were able to drive up the numbers again in Milwaukee and in Madison. We've seen it across this country, the division between urban and rural divide playing out. Big numbers here, big numbers in Madison, and then Trump taking those more rural communities. But at 20,000 vote margin, Joe Biden is the apparent winner in Wisconsin. We will now focus on that recount that we know the Trump administration is already going to trigger. We'll see that paperwork go through in about a week.
All right, Cal, thanks. I just want to drill down a little bit on that terminology, apparent winner. It means that the person who won the race, but the outcome is close enough. The results may depend on a potential recount or confirmation of reported vote results, and that's where we're calling Joe Biden the apparent winner in Wisconsin. Wisconsin Senator Democrat Tammy Baldwin is joining us now. Senator, thank you for being with us. React if you can to that slow slog of what we've just seen, that call in your state.
Well, we've had a tremendous amount of voter participation by absentee ballot, of course, in the middle of a pandemic. And it was unprecedented in our state to have 2/3 of the votes cast before Election Day. Those election day in-person votes were tabulated and reported first, and then we had a wait, quite a wait to see the tabulation of the absentee ballots. But when they were reported, especially from our larger counties, cities of Green Bay, Milwaukee, Kenosha, that's what turned the tide, and we just are pleased with a very high participation rate. And despite what the president might have wanted, we took the time to count every vote.
And tell us what the experience has been with the recount in Wisconsin.
Well, I think you got it right before the break that we have had recounts, and they have mirrored very closely the election night or final reported results. We're talking about maybe a swing of a couple dozen votes to one side of the ledger or the other, but there is over 20,000 vote lead, and our municipal clerks work really hard to make sure that the tallies are accurate. Also, as you know, the process in Wisconsin is that first there is an official canvass of the results that will probably start tomorrow. And it's only after that canvass that requests can be put in for a recount if the margin is closer than 1 percentage point. That cost has to be borne by Donald Trump and his campaign in this case, because you have to be within 1/4 of 1% in order to get a recount that the state would subsidize.
We expect, Senator, we expect to hear from former Vice President perhaps as soon as this hour. His path certainly just became a little easier, but how important is his tone, his language, and any expectations that he may set?
Well, I think he hit the mark last night when he said So we all have to be patient. We have to make sure that every vote is counted. And he felt very encouraged about his chances of becoming the next president and earning those 270 plus electoral votes. But we had to let the process work its way through, especially when you have so many across the country during the pandemic casting absentee ballots, and different rules in different states about when those can be processed and begun, the counting process begun. And obviously in two states we will have ballots that are postmarked by election day. It will still be counted if they come into the election commission in a certain amount of time.
Very close. Again, where we're calling it a apparent winner. Senator Baldwin, thank you for spending some time with us. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Down in Pennsylvania, Chris Dancing in Harrisburg, a place she spent a lot of time covering elections. Chris, Joe Biden, the son of scrapping yet Donald Trump has the lead now. How should we interpret the numbers and what we're seeing right now in Pennsylvania?
Very carefully is the answer to that. Look, the largest number of uncounted ballots of any state at the start of the day today was here in Pennsylvania, and it's expected that it will take longer here than any other place. And of course, it all depends on where those votes are coming from. Obviously, a couple of places that we're looking at very carefully are the cities and the areas around Pittsburgh and Philadelphia. Let me just throw some numbers at you. Right now, Donald Trump is leading here by under 500,000 votes, but more than 1 million votes have yet to be counted. Those are mail-in ballots that they've received. There's another 500,000 ballots that were requested and have not yet been returned. There is no way to estimate how many of those will actually arrive in those elections offices by Friday. So a lot of that is up in the air. And add to that, that if it's a really close race here, you also have military and overseas ballots, which can contribute, but they are not required to be counted until the 11th. So a lot of questions still about the whole count, how long it will take. There is a growing consensus. Not going to happen today. In fact, we've heard repeatedly from the governor, the lieutenant governor, the secretary of state to have patience, that they're going to do this in a very methodical and dependable way. Having said that, I think the consensus again, Lester, is maybe Friday at the earliest for a real count here. And then there are lawsuits which are ongoing or expected. 500 lawyers on the ground just here in Pennsylvania, Lester.
That's a lot of lawyers. All right, Chris Dancing, thank you very much. Pennsylvania has moved along throughout this entire process. Key battleground state, potentially the tipping point in all this. Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman joins us now. Lieutenant Governor, thank you for taking some time. Characterize, if you will, how you see the counting process in Pennsylvania.
Well, I would like to just start off by saying that voting in Pennsylvania went incredibly well and smoothly. You know, any idea that it was going to be chaotic or it was going to be difficult, they were proven wrong, and that's an important point to make because we delivered a secure, safe voting environment, and the people of Pennsylvania weighed in. And right now, we are looking at roughly 1 million ballots that are going to be counted. They need to be counted. It's the law to count them. And just basic math would indicate that they are going to heavily favor the vice president. And as those numbers continue to draw down in the uncounted category, you're going to see the president's margin, I suspect, continue to decrease to a point where Pennsylvania could move into the positive category for the vice president.
You say that because of where those ballots are coming from.
I do. And let's look at key counties in Pennsylvania right now. Montgomery County, Chester County, Delaware County, to some degree Allegheny County at this point. These are all Democratic strongholds, and I don't envision there's a large cohort of Trump voters that are going to vote by mail at this point that are outstanding. I think they're going to break significantly towards the vice president, quite frankly. I mean, that's statistically been market.
But would you expect more lawsuits coming your way? Do you expect the next several days are going to be challenging?
Whatever. I mean, sure, go ahead. 500 lawyers doesn't turn a lie. It doesn't make it any more true. The bottom line is that these votes are going to be counted. These votes have been in clear well in advance of any extended deadline already. And the bottom line is that voting in Pennsylvania was secure, and the result that we're going to get is going to be a true reflection of the will of Pennsylvania voters.
Are you one of those who bought into the idea that Pennsylvania would be the tipping point, that this race would eventually land on your doorstep?
I was like the only Democrat in my state saying, look, we can't underestimate the president's strength here. I don't care what the polls are. I even tweeted out, like, the economist said 93% chance of winning Pennsylvania. I'm like, no way. It's going to be close. And look at Michigan now. Look at Wisconsin. Look at where we're at in Pennsylvania. So I've always taken the president's threat seriously in Pennsylvania, and I was proven correct. But now, where we're at now, with a million ballots outstanding, and given where they're coming from, given the nature of those ballots, math is clearly working in our favor. So send 1,000 players to Pennsylvania. They're going to count percent.
There are obviously going to be a lot of conversations about the polls to come, but just your early view. Why has this been closer than I think a lot of people were led to believe it would be, not only in Pennsylvania, but across that map?
Well, the reason I gave in the weeks running up to it is that the president is intensely popular in Pennsylvania. And if he is successful in producing the kind of margins that put him over the top in 2016, it's going to be a tough race. And that's exactly what he did. Give the president credit. He did what he needed to do in the blue wall, and he came up short in Wisconsin. But I said this also: if Pennsylvania is winnable for the president, he did everything right to get to that point. And if he does, in fact, come up short, it's going to be because we just got we squeezed a little bit more out, and the vice president is a little bit more popular in these small counties across Pennsylvania than Secretary of State was.
And by the way, he's still hanging on a little bit in North Carolina. Certainly Nevada and even Arizona have been called for Joe Biden right now. So do you count the president very much viable in this election?
Of course, but it's also not it's not looking good for the president in Michigan or in Nevada in that ball game, 270 ball game. I mean, my hope is that Pennsylvania is just gravy on top of the icing, metaphorically speaking. But if those two states drop, like Wisconsin, it's time to measure some new grades.
Measure new grades. Lieutenant Governor John Fetterman, thank you for spending a few minutes with us here this morning.
Thank you.
We'll take a quick break. Be back in just a moment. You're watching Decision 2020 coverage on NBC.
People have been building a 5G network for a moment like this. Introducing the iPhone 12 Pro with 5G. Now at T-Mobile, featuring 5G coverage, you can unleash the power of the epic iPhone 12 Pro in 4 places. Get 2 iPhone 12 Pros and 2 lines of unlimited 5G for just $100. Oh, and T-Mobile, America's largest 5G network.
At Jimmy, we know walks are made better with our furry friends, and we're here to make those walks easy. From tasty treats on the go to toys that keep them moving. Get everything they need, even prescriptions, delivered right to your door. Get fast, free 1 to 2 day shipping. Visit Chewy.com today.
Tide Pods Ultra Oxy, one up the dating power of liquid. Can influence whatever they're doing. For sure. Is it? One up the power of liquid, one up the toughest stain. Any further questions? One up the power of liquid with Tide Pods Ultra Oxy.
Colgate Optic White Renewal. 10 years of yellow paper. That's like all the way back to 2010.
What's that? It's a shame when you to wait.
Removing 10 years of yellow stains with Colgate Optic White Renewal. Shop Colgate Salt for everyone on your list. Eat holiday.
our continuing coverage of Decision 2020. The big news in this hour, NBC News projecting is the apparent winner, Joe Biden, in the state of Wisconsin. Apparent winner because this is a really close race. Its results may depend on a potential recount, which the Trump campaign has already indicated it will seek, and certainly confirmation to calling that the apparent winner, Joe Biden. Broke at 270, you see it. Biden at 237 now. 213 on Biden with an easier and better path, perhaps, to 270, but a lot to play out here. Let's go to Cal Perry right now, who is in Milwaukee. He's been watching all the dynamics of this race in Wisconsin. What's the scene here, Cal? Probably Cal. Are we back? Yeah, we're back. Yeah, I got that. Hey, Wes, you got me? We got you. Go ahead. We have it, but we don't have it. At any rate, let's go quickly to Ron Hilliard in Arizona. That's a race that has not been called. It has looked more favorable toward Biden around last night and into today, but still it has not been called. Vaughn, what do we know about any additional votes coming in?
Yeah, Lester, the case in Wisconsin now being called, and Michigan falls to Joe Biden. Arizona's 11 electoral votes could push it. Pennsylvania wouldn't even be needed. And last night, when we first started talking, Joe Biden had more than a double-digit lead. But over the course of these last 12 hours, we've seen that lead continue to dwindle. It's now just at about 3.4 percentage points. And the big issue at hand is that there are still about 600,000 ballots that have been uncounted in the state of Arizona. And the struggle is that it's tough to predict which way these ballots are going to trend. We've seen Democrats, the high propensity voted in those first couple weeks of early voting, but then as you got closer to election day, it was Republicans that were turning out in higher numbers, not only at the polling locations, but also turning in last minute their mail-in ballots. And so when you're looking at the situation here in Arizona, Joe Biden holds about a 93,000 vote lead over Donald Trump. If you take into account that 600,000 ballots on the line, Donald Trump would need to pull off, with rough math, about 58% of the vote. We are not expected, Lester, unfortunately, but for the good that Maricopa County elections officials say that they've got the process under control, that they are ensuring when they do announce the results that they are firm. Tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern is when we should expect the next batch of ballots to drop. And so there's going to be a long afternoon of waiting here. The Trump campaign, dating back to last night when other outlets began calling this race in favor of Joe Biden, protested, essentially making the case that they were able to turn out supporters across the state, not only here in Maricopa County, but over in the rural parts of the state as well, at high rates here. And what you are seeing is in these final days, based off the data that we have, that they were able to close this gap. Now the question is, that's a tall task among these last 600,000 ballots to do that, especially when you take into account that independents are making up about a third of the electorate too. And from the data that we have about independent voters in Arizona, they are trending towards Joe Biden. And so there's a lot of question marks about exactly which way these last couple 100,000 ballots trend here. The Trump campaign is clearly hoping that they come back considerably favorable to the president.
All right, Vaughn, very helpful. We sit here and look at these raw numbers, but it's interesting to hear, where these other votes are coming from and thinking and all this. So we appreciate that. Let's kind of take a check here. We're about 10 minutes of 3 in the East right now, and we've had that movement. We've had this call by Biden, the apparent winner in Wisconsin. Kate, where does that leave us now? This
right.
How do they get there?
I'm going to do my best Chuck Todd impersonation because we let him go rest for a little while. I don't have the big board. I can't.
That's
right. But I think maybe we'll have a graphic or something we can throw up on the screen. Joe Biden's easiest, most likely path now, given that we have projected the apparent winner of Wisconsin to Joe Biden, is Arizona, Nevada, and Michigan. So now that he has Wisconsin, if you turn Arizona blue, which we have not projected yet, if you turn Nevada blue, and if you turn Michigan blue, that's it, Lester. That's all he needs. He doesn't even need Pennsylvania, even if Donald Trump will win Pennsylvania. Joe Biden could become president at 270 votes. This is what I just laid out. What is the path for the president at this point? If you assume that the president takes Georgia, traditionally Republican state, North Carolina, traditionally Republican, and gets Pennsylvania, a big assumption, he then has 264. Not quite enough. So then the president will still need one other state, maybe Nevada, maybe Arizona, which you just heard Paul saying will be difficult, maybe Michigan. But you see how the president's options are much more limited by the map.
Yeah, and certainly, many people have watched leading up to the election that they could might be able to capitalize on that Sunbelt strategy. Didn't quite happen. We may see a pickup for it that gets there in Arizona.
And that could be critical, that Arizona gets that vote for Biden.
And Donald Trump looked like he had a ticket to Pennsylvania as a possibility, but again, that's fantastic. All right, Kate, thanks very much. White House correspondent for the PBS NewsHour, Yamiche Alcindor, joins our conversation again. Thanks for sticking around. Also, MSNBC senior political analyst Ashley Parker. Ashley, good to see you. Give us your take. We've seen this call now for Wisconsin and Joe Biden. How do you think the rest of this day is going to play out, and how long before you think we'll have some clarity here?
Well, the Trump campaign, in the past 24 hours, they in many ways have been whipsawed like the way the rest of the country has. There was early optimism last night that it felt like it was tipping for Biden a little bit. So I was getting calls from sources on the Trump side saying, we're going to win all these seats. We have a very clear path, and the rest is gravy. To this morning, where those exact same people are saying they're quite worried, they're nervous. There is some disagreement over which states the Trump people are most bullish about. I've talked to some people in Trump world who actually say they're most optimistic about places like Arizona and Nevada. That's where they think they may be able to hold. But you also, I think the broader thing to pull back briefly is the president has been laying the groundwork in his rhetoric for what we're about to see for months now. This idea that those that don't go for him, and especially those that are mailed in and not cast on election day, are somehow fraudulent. I want to pause and say that's absolutely 100% not true. But if you look at the campaign strategy, the legal battles they're talking about and the cases they've already filed, what the president said last night, their argument is basically that in the states where he's ahead, they should stop counting votes to declare it a win, and in the states that they had hoped to win but where he is behind, something is amiss, something is fraudulent, and it needs to be looked into further. And so I think that's just not how today is going to play out, but the rest of the week until we have a clear victor.
Yeah, so let me bring in Yamiche. So Yamiche, that being the case, what's the end game here? Filing lawsuits and making statements about disenfranchisement don't necessarily change the result. So is there a broader long game here that's being played, or is it just impulsivity of presidents?
I think it's both, as Ashley noted really smartly. The president has been laying groundwork for this idea that he is a victim of some sort of deep state push to try to take the election away from him. He's been saying over and over again at rally after rally that Democrats are going to try to steal the election. Now, of course, we're a day after the election, while votes are still being counted. So I think the end game here for the president is twofold. One is he really does want to try to, in court as much as possible, try to win legal battles that somehow deliver the election to him. He's been very clear about that. The president also said yesterday that he's willing to go to the Supreme Court. This is why Democrats were very, very nervous when President Trump was able to confirm Justice Amy Coney Barrett, because he believes that he can take a case to the Supreme Court and somehow get a victory in this election through the Supreme Court. Of course, the Biden campaign is pushing back very hard on that. Their top legal expert on their campaign is saying he thinks it's impossible for the president to have some sort of case that would go to the Supreme Court that would then turn into him being elected president. That being said, there's also this feeling among Trump supporters, and I would say among some Democrats, that even if the president loses, he's already laying the groundwork for what could be the president continuing to say that he was a victim of some sort of nefarious thing that allowed him not to be able to get a second term. Now, of course, that's long down the line. I want to pause with Ashley and say that is not true. We don't see any evidence of voter fraud. We don't see any evidence of anyone trying to steal any sort of election. But that being said, the Trump campaign has a little bit different tone. They're being more cautious, but the president himself is being very clear he thinks it's being stolen from them.
Yeah, and actually, a couple things can happen here. That the president finds his path to victory and wins this thing, and then with all those complaints in the background, the other option, of course, is that Joe Biden wins, but is damaged during this lame duck period in which the president still has the bully pulpit.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, the president's only goal is to win. The president is not so much thinking about a post-Trump world where he has lost, he's not president, but what does that mean for Republicanism writ large and Joe Biden? But there are a number of Republicans who frankly feel that even if Trump does not pull this out, exactly what you said, this is on the whole a victory for him. You have Joe Biden coming in weekend for the Democrats who were hoping that last night would be a grand repudiation of Trumpism. That certainly did not happen. The nation is divided and riven with partisanship and distrust for each other as ever. You're going to have Joe Biden again. If he wins, coming in with the former president of the United States, who still stands a very loyal following with at least about half of the country roughly saying that it was stolen, that he's not the legitimate president. And you have a Republican-controlled Senate. So a Biden win, I don't want to say it's a Pyrrhic victory. The Democrats want Biden to win, of course, but he does emerge in a Democratic best-case scenario deeply, deeply damaged and going to be further undermined by Donald Trump just about every day.
I made a mental note yesterday when he was thanking campaign volunteers. He said something to the effect of, winning is easy, but for me, losing is very, very hard. I'm not paraphrasing, but it was a moment of reflective President Trump, and we don't see a lot. And I made a note of that. Thanks to both of you for taking part in our conversation. We need to take a break. We'll be back in just a moment. You're watching Decision 2020 coverage on NBC News.
Internet trolls about President Trump. Ladies and gentlemen, just now.
There's a live look at the ballot counting process happening right now in Fulton County, Georgia, one of several races, too close to call right now in the presidential race. The LA County Registrar says that over 3.1 million ballots have already been processed and counted.
There are still many outstanding ballots left to be tallied in LA County. A process will continue throughout the week. Let's go to Tony Ginyard live at the Downey Tally Operations Center with more on this, Tony.
Yes, they were due a few hours ago. We were in the observation room in the LA County Registrar's Vote Tally Operations Center. If you're a registered voter in the county, this is where the ballot either has or will wind up being counted. The process started overnight with counting the mail-in ballots that arrived prior to Election Day. Mail-in ballots in the extended early voting period credited with the impressive voter turnout. But as we're getting the ballots here, look at this. Helicopters were used to transport the ballots from the vote centers and outlying areas of the county. As of last night, more than 826,000 registered voters in the county have voted in person. Another 2 million more voted using the mail-ins. Coming back live, the ballots just keep coming from the post office, others from drop boxes. The count continues. I'm Tony Ginyard, reporting live from Downey, back in the studio.
Tony, thank you, and want to give you the results on more local races in California's 48th congressional district in coastal Orange County. Democratic incumbent Harley Wuda and Republican challenger Michelle Steele are lost in a very tight race. Still has a slight lead with 93% of precincts reporting.
The 39th congressional district right now incumbent Democrat Gil Cisneros lost in a 50-50 battle with Republican challenger Young Kim. Stay with NBCLA.com and the NBCLA app for more updates.
Welcome back on Kate Snow taking over for Lester for a moment so he can prepare for NBC Nightly News. It is 3 o'clock Eastern Time, noon out west. We are on the air with our continuing NBC News special coverage of Decision 2020. Results still coming in, things very much changing minute by minute, counting as we speak the votes in this presidential election. Let's take a look at where we stand right now. This is the biggest call we've made just in the last hour. Wisconsin, NBC News is now projecting the apparent winner, Joe Biden. In the state of Maine, the Senate race that we've been closely watching, now expected to go for the apparent winner, Senator Susan Collins, longtime senator from the state of Maine, retaining her seat. So if you look at the road to 270 right now, that magic number of electoral college votes needed to win the presidency, we've got Joe Biden with 237, the president with 214, but with a lot of outstanding votes. You look at the map there, the gray states. If you haven't been watching us for the past 24 hours, those gray states are still not projected by NBC News, still very much in play, some more than others. And if you look at the popular vote, you can see the difference there. I'm sorry, that's the electoral vote. That's the electoral vote, guys, or that's the popular? That's Pennsylvania. See, I'm tired. Can you tell? That's Pennsylvania. It says it right across the top of the screen. So Pennsylvania right now, too early to call with 81% of the vote in. Pennsylvania still more than 2 million votes to be counted there. In Michigan, another tight one, too early to call. You've got Joe Biden with a bit of a lead, a difference of 37,000 votes. That's only 94% in, so we were waiting on that one. And Arizona, we just had a report from there from Von Hilliard, 86% of the vote in, too early to call, although Joe Biden's camp is looking on this one favorably. And next up, Nevada, 86% of the vote in there, also too close to call, with Joe Biden with a slight lead there at the moment, but again, too close to call. In Georgia, also too close to call. This is a red state for one that Donald Trump carried easily last time. Joe Biden making a play for it, 93% in, too close to call right now. And North Carolina, another southern state that the Biden camp thought maybe they would have a chance. He visited often, too close to call at this stage. Let's go to Kristen Welker. She's at Joe Biden headquarters in Delaware. Kristen, the former vice president we thought was going to hold a press conference or speak to a crowd, encourage his supporters. Any update on when that might happen?
We still expect that to happen within the hour, Kate, I'm told, as our full reporters are there outside of town. They're waiting to come here, which is their portion so far outside, although I anticipate people will be seeing inside this fund just behind me in that convention hall. Look, the Biden campaign, Kate, based on my conversations throughout the morning and now afternoon, feeling increasingly emboldened, particularly with North Boston, Wisconsin. NBC has, of course, said that Joe Biden is now the apparent winner of Wisconsin, and President Trump is leading to a whole recount of that. But look, here's why this is significant, why this is a significant development, because part of Joe Biden's past, what he always saw as his past, was to rebuild that blue wall, those Midwestern states that fell in 2016 to Republicans. That has been a key part of his goal and his strategy to win back the White House. So with this apparent victory in Wisconsin, Joe Biden getting one step closer to doing that and flipping a key chunk state. They also like what they are seeing in Michigan. They like what they're seeing in Nevada, as well as Arizona. But Kate, we have to underscore that these votes are still being counted. And just because the Biden campaign feels good about it doesn't mean that we know what the ultimate outcome is going to be. It just underscores, I think, what we can anticipate. We're going to hear from Joe Biden when he does, in fact, speak a little bit later on this afternoon. Now, I also wouldn't be altogether surprised if Biden was defiant in terms of responding to what we heard from President Trump overnight. President Trump, of course, falsely claiming that he already won this race. The campaign manager for the Biden campaign came out with a really excoriating response, calling that kind of language dangerous and unprecedented. So, will we hear something similar to Joe Biden when he takes the stage? That remains to be seen, but we'll be listening very closely to that. And then one more thing I would note, the legal challenges have already begun for the Trump campaign. I just spoke with an official of the popsicles throughout the day. The Biden campaign says they have a team of lawyers at the ready to be dispatched for these legal challenges. Now, if Pennsylvania, for example, becomes pivotal, This race can be protracted. But if Biden gets Senator without Pennsylvania, he might not have that protracted battle. But we know that they are focused on Pennsylvania. Why? Because, of course, Pennsylvania started counting its mail-in votes yesterday. So they anticipate it's going to take them until Friday to get to the end of that count.
Right. And just one follow-up question, Kristen. Is the Biden campaign, when you say they've got their lawyers at the ready also, we haven't heard of any offensive moves, if you will, by the Biden campaign. Do you sense that the Biden campaign is also looking at potentially filing any kind of action, or are they waiting in defensive posture for whatever the Trump campaign does?
That's a smart point, Kate. I don't think at this point we have seen them move to file any lawsuit challenging or any of the vote counts at this point. I think at this point in time they are ready to defend against any legal challenges coming their way. Doesn't mean it won't happen, right? Everyone's looking at this counting process quite closely. One top player for the Biden campaign, though, said earlier today, in response to the president's trying to take this fight all the way to the Supreme Court, he basically said, let us. You will ultimately choose to be quite embarrassed by the results. Now, there's a lot of bravado going around on both sides, but that's part of the messaging coming out of the Constitution.
All right, Kristen Welker, thanks so much, and stay on it with us and let us know if there are any signs of Vice President getting ready to speak. Let's bring in our White House correspondent, Peter Alexander. So, Peter, Kristen was just talking about that blue wall, and that's where you're already seeing challenges by the Trump campaign in both Wisconsin asking for a recount and Michigan asking to stop the count now because they don't have access to it.
Yeah, Kate, no, you're exactly right. This started early this morning. We heard from Bill Stepien, the president's campaign manager, saying if they count all the legal ballots, then Donald Trump would win. That term legal ballot suggesting there's some evidence of fraud or cheating, which at this point there is no evidence that we're aware of either of those things right now, indicating the sort of legal strategy they'd be pursuing over the course of this day. And as you noted, that's what we are now seeing within the last hour or so. The campaign announcing that it will be suing to halt the count taking place in the state of Michigan right now. Their claim was that they were not granted access to the counting locations to see the ballot process and counting process taking place. Earlier, it was in Wisconsin where there were about 20,000 votes to separate Joe Biden from Donald Trump. Biden with the advantage there. The Trump campaign announcing that they would be calling for a recount immediately, something that they can do when the vote is within 1 percentage point. Right now it is under 1% that separates the two, even as we have announced that Joe Biden is the apparent winner in that state. And then within the next 30 minutes, now less than that, about 20 minutes from now in Pennsylvania, specifically in Philadelphia, we are going to hear the next sort of effort by the Trump campaign. Corey Lewandowski, the former campaign manager, Laura Trump, Eric Trump, the president's son and his wife, Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, will all be there for a news conference to take place in the next half hour. I'm told by folks in the campaign that they are focusing on what they describe as ongoing election issues in Philadelphia. Rudy Giuliani, a short time ago on Twitter, complaining about what he described as massive cheating in that state. Again, there's no evidence of any cheating taking place. In fact, in Pennsylvania, they are still counting the ballots that are outstanding, as Kristen just indicated. The Supreme Court upheld the decision taking place in that state, which is that for any ballots that were postmarked by yesterday, election day, if they arrive by this Friday, so within 72 hours of election day, they would be legal and they could be counted. Those in the Trump campaign say they are demanding that the folks in Philadelphia play by the rules. For the moment, those are the rules, and no one has said otherwise. Again, the Supreme Court standing by them. So that's where things stand right now from the campaign's purposes. The president, as you noted last night, effectively declaring victory, falsely, obviously, and prematurely. But now they're sort of conceding that that's not the case, that they can claim victory, changing their language, at least the campaign is, saying that they're looking for ways, still trying to find that pathway, whatever it may be, to get to 270 electoral votes.
Peter Alexander at the White House. Of course, Peter, thank you. And as we talk about Pennsylvania, the Secretary of State there, the Attorney General, the Governor of Pennsylvania, all urging calm earlier today and patience, asking everyone to be patient. Let's bring in Washington Post national political reporter, moderator of Washington Week on PBS, and NBC News political contributor Robert Costa is with us, along with Victoria DeFrancesco Soto, Assistant Dean at the LBJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas, Austin, and also at NBC News.
contributor. Robert, let me start with you. I know you have great sources. You spoke with a Biden team lawyer earlier. What are you hearing first from the Biden camp?
I've just been texting with some of them. I got off the phone and with a few of them, and also interviewed Bob Bauer, the Biden campaign's top lawyer. Look, in brief, the Biden campaign is sitting pretty in their view. They feel like their whole strategy was mail-in votes. Let the votes be counted. They may be slow to come in, but let them be counted in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Georgia, and just have patience. And I asked Bauer, are you going to be litigious? Are you going to start going after and filing lawsuits against the Trump campaign? And he said he had some concerns about voter suppression, but they're not going to be filing any lawsuits at this time. They're just going to let the vote be counted.
That's what I did. That's Chris and Walker, whether they would proactively be thinking. Actually, Robert, before I switch over, let me just ask you about the Trump White House right now and the president himself. Do you have any reporting on what his attitude is today? We know that they're going to be holding family members of his advisors will be holding a press conference.
I've asked for his confidants to give me their candid view. And they say his whole attitude last night at 3 a.m. in the morning is being echoed now this morning and this afternoon on Wednesday. He's telling his associates, his advisors, get out to Philadelphia, fight for me, show you're going to fight, say this election is stolen, even though there's no evidence of voter fraud in this election in any way. He's telling his people to get out there and fight. And he's getting his lawyers ready to file lawsuits, and he's asking them to go all the way to the Supreme Court. However, most Republican lawyers, including Don McGahn, his former counsel, who I just got off the phone with, he said that's going to be difficult. It's a difficult path for the Trump campaign at this point to mount a major legal challenge. What they're hoping for is a recount in Wisconsin, and they're hoping in Georgia they can hold on. Though it's tough. A lot of votes are still being counted in Fulton County in Atlanta.
Let me go to Victoria. Victoria, you're the Assistant Dean for Civic Engagement. This is a moment of civic engagement in this country like we haven't seen in quite a while.
Specifically 120 years. So the turnout levels that we have seen in the 2020 election surpass those. It's not record-breaking, but it is the highest in 120 years. And I think that the silver lining to all of this, where we're waiting for the results to be finalized, is the fact that we did see an increase in youth turnout. We did see an increase in Latino turnout, perhaps not necessarily in the way certain candidates wanted it to go, but we did see a lot of turnout, a lot of enthusiasm on both sides. I think that this is an especially important win for the country in this moment where we're very much on edge. And really quickly, Kate, I wanted to note in terms of the patients wearing things for both. This is what is so difficult about our democracy. Democracy is about uncertainty at times, and it's about accepting the fact that we don't know, and then we're going to have to accept results that we don't necessarily like. So this is a very important period that we are living, and we also need to reflect on that in terms of our engagement. So I think I always push people, instead of being frustrated, allow this beautiful process that is our democracy to play out. And notable right now, Victoria, that we're sitting here the day after the election, there were so many fears. There's so much anxiety in this country right now. I think everyone is feeling it, and concerns that there might be violence, that there might be demonstrations, that people might not accept the results. At this stage, it's early, but things seem to be calm in this country. People are waiting, and they are being patient. They are, and anything really notable pop up on election day in my home state of Texas here. We know that the National Guard was on alert by the governor. We didn't need any of that, right? Folks were peaceful. They wanted to make their voice heard. So I think that what is important is that we keep doing what we're doing. No one likes to wait. No one likes to hurry up and wait. And I think this is going to be the key piece because it's going to take a while. Not only is the counting going to take a while, but the recount process is going to take a while, and perhaps the legal challenge. So I wish I could say it were different, but we just need to stock up on our patience. And just in terms of fortitude, it just reminds me of 2000 all over again. Victoria DeFrancesco Soto, Robert Costa, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it so much. Let's turn who's with us now from Delaware, a Democrat. You were with members of the Biden campaign last night. Tell me about the mood as you were tonight. We heard about Vice President Biden making calls yesterday, trying to find out where votes are still coming in. He was actively
working the phones from what I heard.
Oh, great to be on with you. We're optimistic. Everything that we've seen today strongly suggests that if we have the patience that you were just discussing, we wait and make sure that every vote is counted, that we will end up, the Biden campaign will end up with a bigger margin of victory in Wisconsin and Michigan and likely in Pennsylvania than Donald Trump had in those three critical states 4 years ago. Joe Biden is on the pathway towards winning the presidency, but we have to be patient and make sure that the laws are followed and the votes are counted. As you well know, in our country, elections are not decided by candidates and their pronouncements. They're decided by voters casting ballots, and those ballots being counted in an orderly way by states, counties, by boards of commission, boards of election, and then the secretaries of state. Certified how our system works.
But let me play devil's advocate for a moment, because if the president and his campaign continue to cast doubt on these results, continue to say there were making claims that there were disenfranchised voters, that there were things happening in certain states that we haven't been able to verify at this point, but they're casting doubt. Will that tarnish, as we move forward here, will that make it harder for the vice president if he is declared a winner?
Well, if Donald Trump had a reputation as a truthful man who routinely said clear and science-based and truthful things about other matters, it might be a greater problem. But we know that President Trump almost daily says things that are wildly untrue about things as important as the pandemic and public health, about world relations, about the size of his own crowds, about all sorts of things. He is just a serially untruthful man who has great difficulty saying things that are honest.
Senator, can I ask you to pause and stay with us for a moment? I want to get back to Peter Alexander at the White House with a little bit of developing news about the president and Pennsylvania, I understand, Peter?
Yeah, Kate, that's exactly right. As we noted, there will be a news conference taking place in Pennsylvania about 10 to 15 minutes from now, but we just received a statement from the Trump campaign about the newest actions, the legal actions they're taking, in their words, to, quote, fight for the integrity of the most important election in our lifetime right now. So an issue here is the fact that, as we noted, in that state, they could receive ballots that are postmarked by yesterday, election day, through this Friday, that those ballots would be counted. That was upheld by the Supreme Court. Well, now, according to this new statement from the Trump campaign, the action they are taking, they are suing to stop the counting of those ballots right now. They want to try to pursue this case further with an effort to try to get, I suspect, the Supreme Court to weigh in at another time on it, now that there is another Trump nominee, now Justice Coney Barrett, who is on the court. And separately, that they are demanding access to these voting locations in Pennsylvania, where some of the the counting process is taking place as well. Something similar to what they have done earlier today in Michigan. So not clear that they have yet filed suit, but that they will be filing suit in Pennsylvania as well. Again, Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, will be among those delivering this statement of some kind to take place only a short time from now. As we've been reporting, they are looking for any possible avenue to try to claw back some of these states. This is a state where they have an advantage right now, but there is, I think, 1.3-something billion votes still out there. And if you look at the map, particularly in the bottom right of that screen, those collar counties around Philadelphia, the expectation is that a lot of those votes, many of them mail-in ballots, yet to be counted. They didn't begin the process of looking at them until yesterday. That those ballots and the ones that they may receive in the next several days could make this a much closer race for Joe Biden.
And Peter, I want to put a point on that, because to clarify, these are ballots that were legally cast, that were sent in and postmarked by election day, right? That were going to be allowed to be counted, but had been cast by election day. And now the Trump campaign is saying, don't even count them.
Yeah, Kate, no, you're exactly right about those ballots. These are ballots that were postmarked by election day, but to be clear, they may not even be in the receipt of the election officials yet. They may not have them yet. They still have 48 hours. They have until Friday for those to be received. So there could still be more ballots coming in than 12. That number, obviously, that's a concern. The Trump campaign officials say they want the Philadelphia officials to play by the rules. They say it's only the Congress or the legislature of that state that can change these rules, that can extend the deadline They say, in effect, that that is not allowed, that they are breaking rules in Philadelphia, and that's the effort that they're pursuing there.
Peter Alexander at the White House, thank you. We're going to go back to Senator Chris Coons, who's still with us from Delaware, a Democrat. Senator, you just heard that breaking news. They're now going to fight in Pennsylvania. They're going to try to stop the counting of these ballots that have been sent in, postmarked by yesterday, by Election Day, also demanding access to locations where the votes are being counted and open. Your reaction?
Well, frankly, President Trump and his team have proven themselves to be masters of spectacle and distraction. They want to stop the counting in a state where they're currently ahead, but where all the trends show they will ultimately lose. And they want to go back and recount ballots in a state where they have been declared the losers. I think they should allow the law to be applied and the ballots to be counted. The ballot counting process is transparent and public. They're trying to gin something up here in Pennsylvania to give them a claim where these are legally cast ballots, where the Supreme Court has declined to intervene before twice. And I think, frankly, this just shows it smacks of desperation that the president and his team are trying to do everything they possibly can to litigate back to a win when it looks near certain that in these critical states where the counting of ballots is still going on, that they will ultimately lose.
Senator Coons, thanks for being with us. We will be hearing from the Trump campaign and his team shortly, about 9 minutes from now, we believe. We're back after a short break. Stay with us.
With one of the industry's largest catastrophe response teams, State Farm will always be among the first to arrive and the last to leave to help show that human nature is greater than nature. Like your neighbor, State Farm is there.
Pain is bad. So get some relief back. Only Tylenol Rapid Release Gel avoids your pills home. Pain relief is a fast for fast pain. Tylenol Rapid Release Gel.
Let him go. We can't see our grass.
Go careful.
Bye-bye. Let him go. We are our day.
Colgate Optic White Renewal. 10 years of young savings. That's like all the way back to 2010. Their jeans, their leggings, their jeggings. Whoa. 10 years of young savings with Colgate Optic White Renewal.
It only takes a second for an everyday item to become dangerous. Cyclops Child Guard Pack helps keep your laundry packs in a safe place and your child safer. To close, twist until it clicks. Cyclops Child Guard Packaging.
This you can. This country requirement. We start with farm-grown greens. Low term, middle of the country. We've also been at the middle of tables for generations. No matter where your table is, in the country.
Hey folks, thanks for Wi-Fi. Connecting to hackers and cyber criminals. You're not listening, I said Wi-Fi. I am listening, and I might not be the only one. Hackers can see what you send over Wi-Fi or steal what's on your device. Well, how do I stop them? Norton 360 includes a VPN for online privacy, device security, and more.
Keep prying eyes out. Go to norton.com/privacy. Drew Brees and Tom Brady, they have thrown for more yards and more touchdowns than anyone ever. If you want to see these legendary to make more history, we'll see you Sunday night. 6 Bucks on NBC.
Welcome back to NBC News coverage of Decision 2020 as we approach 3:30 on the East Coast, 12:30 out west. The battleground state of Michigan is still too early to call at this hour. NBC's Dasha Burns is in Grand Rapids, Michigan for us today. Dasha, it's a tight state, it's a tight race, it's too early to call. And we've also had action just in the last couple of hours from the Trump campaign asking for the count there to stop.
Yeah, Kate, and the Michigan Attorney General's office just put out a statement responding to that. They said they have not been officially notified of the lawsuit when they are served. They will review it, but she emphasized that Michigan elections are done transparently. I also just spoke to the city clerk here in Grand Rapids. I asked him if this lawsuit is changing anything about what he's doing right now. He told me no. He said the state trooper will have to pull him out of here to stop the counting of these ballots. And the Trump campaign said that they did not get meaningful access to locations to observe the process. And here's what I can tell you, Kate. We have been here all day. We've been observing what's been going on here. And let me show you a little bit of what's been happening. These election workers here behind me, they began counting these ballots at 7 a.m. yesterday morning. We've talked a lot about patience today. This is a slow process. Let me show you why. We've got these tabulators here overnight. There were issues with the tabulator. They weren't working properly. That led to some delay here. And then we've got this group of folks gathered over a computer here. They're participating in a process called adjudication. Any ballot that has any sort of stray mark on it, be it a copy stain, be it an ink mark, and so we didn't fill out a circle properly. We've got a group of people who look over that ballot and decide over what the voter's intention is. And that group of people includes Democrats and Republicans. Democrat and Republican challengers working together to decide on the voter's intentions. That is a small part of the process, but an important one. I'm going to walk you over here where there are stacks of ballots here. These are the ballots that have already been counted. They have gotten through a lot of them. The Grand Rapids City Clerk tells me that they will have results out of Grand Rapids at some point today. We don't know exactly when, but it's still hopeful they will have results here today. And this is significant. 58,000 absent people sitting in this room right now, which is tight race in Michigan. Not just for president, by the way, but also the Senate race. A tight race between Gary Peters and John James here. So what happens in Grand Rapids in these coming hours will have an impact on the state of the race in Michigan.
And Josh, at Grand Rapids, my recollection is a place that leans Republican typically. And you just mentioned observers being in there. The Trump campaign is arguing that they're not getting access to these rooms. Have you seen anyone from the Trump campaign there?
I have seen Democrats and Republicans, including Kate, the head of the Kent County GOP, who was here. So this is a transparent process. Anyone who wants to observe can have access here, particularly to that adjudication process that I was talking about that is so critical here. So what we've seen today, transparency is the name of the game.
Okay, all right, Dasha Burns for us in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Dasha, thank you. We'll take a quick break here. We continue with Decision 2020 election coverage right after.
To the average, when he reaches out his hand, put to his feet, game on, everybody calls me to respond. Chicago Wednesday returns next Wednesday at NBC. Rights to individuals and personal law, how incredible is that? We only get one shot at being the first impression. Good work, or you go with all of it. I'm Maine's charter guest. This could is that new crew, perfect storm. This is not over. Get back here and vote now. Such a quick call.
Be sure to watch new episodes of Promise Below Jack every Monday after 9.
If you think these guys are history, you'd be right. Because 3 to 3 have combined for more yards and more touchdowns than anyone ever. Now, these two legends are division rivals. And if you want to see them battle for another chance at making history, we'll see you Sunday night. Bucks, Sunday Night Football on NBC.
I am speaking in all caps. Oh my God! Internet trolls about that. Joe. Ladies and gentlemen, hey, just now.
continuing coverage rolls on NBC Decision 2020. It is 3:30 on the East Coast, 12:30 Pacific time. I want to update you with some of our latest results, and there have been some changes in the last hour. If you tuned out for a while, you come back. Wisconsin has been projected now. The apparent winner, NBC News projecting Joe Biden with Wisconsin. A very critical projection for the vice president. As, of course, part of that northern wall that the vice president is trying to win Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania in that wall. We've also got results of the popular vote coming in, a difference of 3 million votes, with Joe Biden in the lead in the popular vote. Of course, that's not how we pick our presidents, but it's interesting to note. Let's look at Maine. The split there, the projected winner, Joe Biden in the presidential race, and the way they will split their electoral votes, because Maine does things a little bit differently. 3 of those electoral votes will go to Joe Biden, 1 to President Trump. Let's talk about the Maine Senate race, which just got resolved this afternoon. The apparent winner now, Susan Collins, the Republican, the incumbent, longest-serving Republican woman in the U.S. Senate, retains her seat there after a challenge from Sarah Gideon, Speaker of the House of Maine. And Matthew Dunlap of Maine, the Secretary of State in the great state of Maine, is joining us now. Mr. Dunlap, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
I'd like to know from your perspective as a Secretary of State, as you're looking at everything else that's happening in all these other states, where people are maybe a little busier than you are today, I would guess. Tell me about the process of making sure your tabulations are correct and certifying a state vote. It's a difficult process.
It is difficult, but it's not rocket science. It's actually a very transparent process that we developed in every state over much time, with thoughtful legislation that is the bedrock of our election law. The process that we use to tabulate races is time-tested and very transparent, and it's just a matter of simply counting every single ballot and being able to have that process in place to discern voter intent. This is something that election officials have a lot of expertise at, and again, it is a public process, so people can observe it, and if there's an opportunity for someone to challenge and ask for a recount, we have room for that so that the public can understand that they should be able to have the confidence that their ballots are accurately counted and that they can do so, that they can participate in their democracy without fear of this pandemic and have that confidence that their voice is heard.
For those of us who lived through 2000, who remember 2000, remember the chats in Florida, that was the way that the paper ballots worked there. People had to push a stylus through the paper, and there were so-called hanging and simple chats. What will be the hanging chat of this election? Or are we at a completely different stage in technology, advanced enough now that we don't have that kind of problem anymore? What do you foresee as the problematic thing?
Well, I think the problematic thing is the constant sowing of doubt on the process by the people that are using one of the signature changes in election law in America was the passage of the Help America Vote Act of 2002 in response to what happened in Florida in 2000. It called for things like uniform voter files and uniform voting technologies, and it's really changed the way we administer elections, and it's made it much more uniform and predictable and transparent, and people really do trust this process. And I think the real danger here is that when people say the process is flawed or it's rigged or something like that, what that does is that just makes people wonder if there's any point of even participating. And I think that's a real disservice to America when we do that.
One last question about Pennsylvania, because we just learned that the president's team, the president's campaign, will be filing in Pennsylvania to try to stop the counting of those ballots that were postmarked by Election Day, but received later. They would have a few days to catch up, if you will, because they didn't start counting until yesterday on Election Day. Is that an anomaly in your world? I mean, most states seem to try to start counting a bit earlier than Pennsylvania.
But every state has different election laws. And that's one of the challenges here, that if you're running a nationwide campaign, is understanding all those different laws. The system that they have in Pennsylvania is just as watertight and time-tested as any of the others, the 50 states of the Union. So in terms of what's happening now with filing litigation to stop a process, that's like changing the rules after the game is over. Frankly, in our view, every single ballot that is legally cast by a citizen of the United States deserves to be counted to be part of the final tabulation, no matter the margin. We need to have an accurate historic record. That's why you have to make sure that you count everything. If the law in Pennsylvania is that they are going to count absentee ballots for the postmark by election day, the time to file that lawsuit was before the election, not while you're counting ballots.
Matthew Dunlap, the Secretary of State of Maine, thanks so much for being with us this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, let's get over to Pennsylvania now. We've got a couple of correspondents standing by for us. Chris Jansing is in Harrisburg with voter sentiment. Rahema Ellis is over in Philadelphia with the latest on the vote count. Chris, I'll start with you. With this word in the last hour that the Trump campaign will be challenging and trying to stop the counting of the votes in Pennsylvania, how are voters responding?
Nobody is surprised. One of the things I'll tell you, I think I've been here 3 or 4 days and all runs together at some point. There's an intensity and there was an expectation. Look, they knew that this was going to be close. A lot of these folks are very, very passionate about their candidates, particularly in 2020. I spent a lot of time, for example, with some union folks who were going door to door. As you know, pretty unusual. The Democrats didn't do a lot of that in the time of COVID, but they felt that it could help make the difference in some of the neighborhoods, talking union member to union member. In fact, if you look behind me, you can see maybe a few people starting to gather, a sign going up on the steps of the Capitol here in Harrisburg. There's going to be an event here in a couple of hours with the unions, with the progressive groups. Their message, count the vote. We're reflecting what we're hearing from the governor and what we're hearing from the Biden camp. Let's not rush to judgment here. Let's let the votes be counted. Conversely, when you listen to the president, his supporters, who again are so passionate, they are talking about these claims of fraud, unsubstantiated claims of fraud, and the ones that are coming in now. We saw it in Michigan, now we're seeing it here in Pennsylvania. A press conference is just about to get underway, questioning the way some of these votes are counted. So I think more than any other campaign I've ever covered, Kate, these voters have been very much and continue to be a reflection of the thoughts of the candidate that they support.
And Chris, thank you. And I know my parents live in Pennsylvania. People who live there and vote there have been sort of dreading this whole period of time. I want to get to Rahema Ellis because Chris just mentioned, Rahema, the idea that the president's campaign is promoting that there was some kind of problem with the vote. Are you seeing any evidence of that on the ground?
Well, first, we are not seeing any evidence of that at all. And in fact, we could even have the opportunity. There is a camera inside the place of the executive session where I am in Philadelphia. This is House's Central, if you will, for Philadelphia. They are counting mail-in ballots right behind me, and they haven't even allowed our camera crew to go inside and take pictures. In addition, there is a camera inside which is streaming pictures of the counting that's going on. In addition, there are independent poll watchers and representatives who have been certified from both Republican and the Democrat candidates who have been allowed inside to watch what's going on. So the state is going to mount, quite honestly, I suspect, a serious challenge with any suggestion by the Trump campaign that the ballot counting is being hidden from the Republican candidates. Even to get into here, again, it is heavily guarded, but people are allowed in. Our cameraman, he had to take a COVID test before going in and was checked by 2 magnetometers. It is a secure place, but they are allowing people to watch what's happening because they say they want it to be free, fair, and transparent so people can trust the vote and the power of the vote when it is ultimately reported.
It's okay. It's a long day. and Rahema, yesterday during election day, to my mind, I didn't see any significant reports of problems at polling places or interference in the vote in Philadelphia. Is that accurate?
That is indeed accurate. In fact, one of the things that election officials and the governor of Pennsylvania came out and said was that they were very pleased that there have been no widespread reports of any kind of irregularity at the voting places, or even in regards to the mail-in ballot. They know that such an enormous undertaking that they have done, which was the first time in Pennsylvania that they had this volume of mail-in ballots. And they say for the most part it's a fraud on YouTube. They're tremendously proud of that. They also say that they're trying to be transparent about it again. People have to be certified to be a full worker, but they were doing that. They were certifying people again from both parties to participate in the watch of what's going on inside these places where they're counting these ballots.
Hannah Ellis of Pennsylvania also. Thank you, Hannah. Appreciate it. Joining us now to talk about the administration's legal challenges over both in Pennsylvania and other states, a Stanford law professor and NBC News legal analyst Nate Priscilli, and also NBC News political contributor Robert Costa is still with us, also with the Washington Post. Nate, let me start with you. We spoke in the early hours of this morning about what could happen today. Well, here we are. Let's focus in on Pennsylvania and this claim that the president's team says that there will be filing to try to stop the vote. From a legal perspective, how high is the bar to stop the counting of ballots that have already been filed?
Well, they're not going to be able to stop the counting of the vote. The votes are in, and the question is, what are the procedures for counting the vote, and then you can contest it afterwards, as we remember in, say, Bush versus Ford. And so, right now, they're trying to alter the procedures for the counting of votes. So they're trying to make sure that they can observe the votes. But we're in kind of dust-up phase of the pre-litigation phase. Right now, the counting needs to go on, and right now they're raising a series of issues that will then have some kind of importance in the event they end up in court. And so I think that right now they're just casting a lot of doubt on the process with the hope that maybe later on they can challenge the count as a result.
And I should note that there are members of the Trump campaign and his teams and advisors are holding a press conference right now, and we are monitoring that. We'll bring you any news from that. Robert Costa, what's the strategy here on behalf of the Trump team?
The Trump team is trying to raise concerns about mail-in ballots, but they're not seeing any kind of evidence about fraud. They're not seeing things that they can actually cling on to and make an argument. What they're concerned about is how mail-in ballots are coming in late, in the sense that they're being counted late, but that doesn't mean they're illegitimate ballots. And so the Biden campaign's position is just to sit back and almost shrug at what the Trump campaign is doing and just let the votes be counted. And because you don't see any flashpoints right now in terms of allegations of voter fraud that are breaking through, that seem to be more than anecdotal or questionable in terms of credibility. And that's why the Biden campaign feels good. Its strategy was always to count on the mail-in vote at the end of the day.
I should note that Vice President Biden is on the move, going toward the Chase Center in Delaware, where we think he will speak, and we'll get to that as soon as it happens, obviously. Nate Priscilli, one last question about this. So in Pennsylvania, the Supreme Court had already taken action to allow this counting to happen for 3 days post-election of ballots that were received or postmarked by Election Day. What could happen, legally speaking, now? Do you suspect it's going right up to the Supreme Court?
Well, nothing's going to go right up to the Supreme Court. There's going to be a process, either at state or federal court, that will eventually land a case at the Supreme Court. As you said, there was a lot of litigation for this election, and in some ways that's a blessing, so we had some clarity in the rules. The downside is that the Pennsylvania Supreme Court's decision, which was appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, led to a 4-4 split at the U.S. Supreme Court before Amy Coney Barrett rejoined the court. She then was not there for another reconsideration of that, or she just recused herself and was not participating. So there's an open question as if another case came from Pennsylvania, whether we would now have full 9 justices considering it. But what the U.S. Supreme Court let stand was a decision from the Pennsylvania Supreme Court that allowed for 3 extra days for ballots to be received. They still had to be postmarked and sent out on Election Day, but they could be received by 3 days afterwards.
All right, Nate Priscilli, thank you for being with us and helping us sort through it all. Robert Costa, same to you. Appreciate it. We'll take a quick break just to note that Vice President Biden looks to be about 10 minutes away. We're estimating from making some remarks. So you'll want to stick with us if you're interested in that. Take a quick break. We're watching Decision 2020 on NBC.
We all have our own journey ahead of us. Our own hopes and dreams that will pass many miles past us on 175 and try to achieve reform. So we celebrate everyone. Because that isn't just about where you want to get to, it's also about how you get there. Currently, our long 2021 Cadillac never stop riding.
Go on. Put yourselves through all that pain. What's surrounding us? Hook knives. What's your blue light lamp? Blast those eardrums back. Look at this one. You're trying to pick up from me. Ha! Silly fool. Silly you. Who do you think you are? They will bring you to your senses. You cannot keep this up. They said you can't. Aston says you can.
Forever just felt the bleeds in her cave, but when we realized she was battling sensitive skin, we switched to New Tide Plus Daily Free. It's gentle on her skin, and dermatologists recommend it. New Tide Plus Plus Daily Free. Safe for sensitive skin with eczema and psoriasis.
Clean my body. It turns out I have tardive dyskinesia, a condition that may be related to certain medications that lead to bipolar disorder. Tardive dyskinesia can affect different parts of the body. It may also affect people who take medication for depression or schizophrenia.
In today's trying times, we're here to help you manage TD. Visit talkabouttd.com for a doctor discussion guide to prep for your next appointment in person, over the phone, or online.
It's a relief to know there are treatments for TB.
When he's in the average, when he reaches on his hand, put to sleep. Really called to respond. Chicago Wednesday returns next Wednesday from DC.
Welcome back to our NBC Decision 2020 election coverage. Democrat Joe Biden just picked up an apparent win in Wisconsin, according to NBC News and our projections, and he is expected to hold a news conference possibly within moments, within the next 10 minutes or so, after urging his supporters overnight to be patient as ballot counting continues. We have not heard from the vice president since that late night drive-in event where he spoke to supporters who were in their cars honking along. Kristen Welker is at Biden headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware. Chief White House correspondent Hallie Jackson is at the White House for us. Kristen, I'll start with you. I don't even know how long it's been. Has it been not quite 12 hours? I've lost sense of time. 14 hours since we heard from the vice president, I believe.
That sounds about right. It's been a long time. And look, I think you heard us confident Vice President Biden overnight. It was about 2 a.m. You're right about that. And he talked about the fact that he believed there was a task for him in the White House. I think what you're going to hear when he speaks today is an increasing bullishness from the Vice President about his chances, in part because, of course, Wisconsin NBC News has now called that for Biden as the apparent winner of that state. And so I think you'll hear him lean into that. The fact that his campaign strategy has always relied on building fast the blue wall. That's, of course, the critical battleground states throughout the Midwest, Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota, Pennsylvania. So he is going to, I think, strike a note of confidence of doubt this new call. And he is willing to try to make a case that he started to win back those states the Democrats lost in 2016. He sees that really as critical to his re-election. The other states that they are watching closely at this hour: Nevada, Arizona, and of course, as I mentioned, Pennsylvania, where you have those legal challenges unfolding as we speak. And I just told the Biden campaign officials appointed to Bob Allen on an earlier today to reporters. The top lawyer with the Biden campaign, who was pretty defiant about the prospect of any losses coming from the Trump campaign. And let me just read you a little bit of what Bob Allen had to say earlier today. He said, as far as our own planning, we're winning the election. We've won the election, and we're going to defend that election. We don't have to do anything but protect the rights of voters and to stand up for the democratic process. We take the task as the president suggests it will be attacked. We are going to successfully repel that attack. So I wouldn't be surprised if we heard similar messaging from the vice president when he addresses the nation in just a few moments from now. And again, his motorcade on the way here to this same location where he spoke overnight. Although I anticipate he's going to be inside of court last night, he was here. We have one of those signature driving rallies in the age of COVID where people are socially distant and in their cars. But I think that today is going to be a smaller event, and you are going to hear him speak about this evolving situation that don't count as the election hangs in the balance.
You just quoted Bauer saying we've won the election. If the vice president went that far in his coming remarks, that would be similar to what President Trump said overnight. Both sides essentially claiming victory.
Yeah, and you saw the vice president come out last night before President Trump, which I think was so significant. Now, he was very careful. In court report, he said he believed there was a path to winning the election. I don't anticipate he will go that far, but we'll have to wait and see what specifically he has to say. But it's clear that Biden wanted to really drive the narrative home, and that he wanted to be the one really controlling the narrative, and that was a key part of why he got out first, got out ahead of President Trump. And remember, there have been all of those concerns about President Trump, especially doing what he did last night, which is to come out and declare victory before all of the votes have been counted. So he will be listening very closely to every word that the vice president has to say. I anticipate those things you're going to hear him walking that line carefully and really urging his supporters and people all across the country to have patience as we watch these election developments unfold.
Kristen, thank you to Hallie Jackson over at the White House. Hallie, the president did not walk the line carefully. The president came out and said, I've done it. I've won this state, this state, this state, without the numbers being there. What's changing now is Joe Biden comes out and speaks. What do you anticipate out of the president?
So it's interesting, Kate. We have not heard from the president on camera yet today. We have heard from him plenty on Twitter with 4 of his tweets, Kate, in just the last not even 24 hours, slapped with warning labels by Facebook and by Twitter because it is essentially spreading misinformation. He talked about the president coming out and declaring victory in some of those key battleground states prematurely with no evidence to support that. It wasn't true then. It's still not true as of, 3 o'clock, 3:30 this afternoon either. The president also declared that we won the race, he said, incorrectly, and incorrectly asserted that there was major fraud happening in the election. None of that is true, Kate. The election so far, the ballot counting has proceeded, according to all of our reporting, exactly as it was expected to proceed. There is a huge amount of mail-in ballots, as we've talked about, largely driven by the pandemic and people wanting to get those ballots in early, not necessarily in some instances show up the polling sites. We've been talking for weeks about the idea that it would take a long time to count these ballots. Well, guess what? It's taking a long time to count these ballots. I can tell you, Kate, as we await a news conference, sort of a dueling news conference now, not with the president and former Vice President Joe Biden, but with the president's son, Eric Trump, Laura Trump, one of the campaign's top surrogates, Corey Lewandowski, former campaign manager from 2016, and others in Philadelphia. That is because the Trump campaign is now filing more lawsuits, right? They already had this lawsuit in Michigan we learned about today. They're filing another couple of lawsuits in Pennsylvania to try to stop ballot counting there. As that is all happening, if they're pushing these legal challenges, you also have the campaign talking about what they see as potentially their pathways to victory. There's a lot of discussion about Arizona and the vote maybe being much closer than it seems right now, a race, by the way, that NBC News has not called yet, and you can see it is still in that column too early to call. I will say other outlets have called it, and that is something that has infuriated the Trump campaign. They think they have a potential shot in Arizona, despite what we're seeing in some of the numbers currently. They also think they could be doing well in Georgia and in North Carolina as well. They think they could pull up wins there. Wisconsin and Michigan, a bit of a different story as the campaign is threatening a recount in Wisconsin. By the way, they can't officially file for that until next week. So at this point, that is a threat. That is not something that is formally conducted right now. All of this taken together, though, Kate, a sign that the Trump campaign is taking some of these tactics to try to pull out a victory if possible. As the president is feeling confident about Pennsylvania, there is a sense, and there was a lot of discussion on a call with reporters that I was just on with top campaign officials for the Trump campaign, that they believe they have a healthy lead based on numbers that they're seeing in Pennsylvania. Again, a state that NBC News has not called. Point being, the path to victory for President Trump is extremely, extremely narrow at this point. It is narrower than Joe Biden's. That's not to say it is impossible, particularly when we have all these battleground states that are too close or too early to call, Kate. I will say that from having covered the president for a number of years, since the campaign, 4.5, 5 years ago started, would be surprised if we didn't hear from him again in some fashion after Joe Biden speaks. This is a president who, as we saw even overnight on election night, likes to have the last word. He is engaged in television. We know that his top advisors are huddling at campaign headquarters just across the Potomac here in Virginia to talk through what their next steps and strategy will be. No decision yet on whether the president will address the nation and will address Americans, but we'll be keeping an eye out for that.
Yeah, Hallie, as you were talking, I was thinking back an hour ago. I was sitting here with Lester, and I was trying to put on my best Chuck Todd, which I'm not very good at. But really, I mean, if the president were to win Georgia, which we've not projected yet, North Carolina, which we have, Pennsylvania, which we say they feel good about, that adds up to 264. It's still not enough. Not the 270 that he needs. So he would have to have Nevada or Arizona or Michigan, because we've taken Wisconsin off the plate.
Right, and that's why, Kate, as you point out, it's so important, and I think that's why we're hearing so much about the state of Arizona. There is a lot of discussion about that being potentially a place that the Trump campaign sees votes coming in, not to get into the weeds here and let nerd out with you in the afternoon, but they see the potential
for the overnight hour.
That's after midnight, girl, I know. But they do see the potential for the rate of votes coming in, where it has been, being able to be matched in what we're seeing. Now, in Arizona, we're not going to know anything sort of the next ballot done. We're not going to get the next big batch of vote count in until way later tonight. You can see the numbers right now. Too early to call for NBC News. But that's one that the Trump campaign is especially focused on. As you said, even if he does well in these other states, they've got to still pick up one of Arizona and Nevada, because Wisconsin is off the table. And that is going to be the focus over these next 24 hours. Nevada, by the way, we should know, those results we expect to know. They're being counted today. We expect to know more about them tomorrow. So still a lot of question marks out in the ether.
All right. Hallie Jackson at the White House. Stay tuned for us. Stand by for us, if you will. Come back. We'll go to Morgan Radford, who's in North Carolina, where the presidential race, as we've just said, too close to call in that state. And Morgan, we were just talking about it. That's a state that was traditionally red, that the president's hoping to hold on to. What are you hearing there?
We actually have late breaking news here, Kate. The North Carolina State Board of Elections just announced this afternoon that we will not have any new updated voter totals until next week. Why? Because November 12th is the deadline that was upheld by the Supreme Court. That is the day the County Board of Elections, like this one behind me in Mecklenburg County, will actually begin counting those mail-in ballots that were postmarked by Election Day. But since they're not going to likely count them until Thursday, we won't have those voting totals until then. I'm sorry, Thursday, next week? Yes, Thursday, November 12th, which is what's fascinating, and that is the delay piece. So to be clear, NBC News Division Desk has still designated this race too close to call, and that's why this is down to the wire. What we do know is that according to the data released publicly by the State Board of Elections, President Trump is leading here in North Carolina by about 76,000 votes. But what we also know is that the State Board of Elections says there are still likely 117,000 mail-in ballots that have been requested but not yet returned. However, they say that number is likely to be a little bit lower, and that number they may actually update by tomorrow. But they still think we will not have any final voting numbers until next Thursday. And what are voters saying to you, Morgan, about the state of things in North Carolina and the indecision right now and the not knowing? It doesn't have people feeling great, Kate. I'm from North Carolina. I'm from Greensboro. So I grew up talking to North Carolina voters. I'm happy to be back reporting now on North Carolina voters. But people are saying they feel uneasy. But one thing I think is really important to note, Kate, is that the officials who've spoken to here on the ground say the process of this election is really similar to the processes of other elections in the past. The process itself is not actually highly unusual. But one thing they is different this year is the attention paid to these mail-in ballots and those provisional ballots and the volume of those mail-in ballots. What we also found out just in the past 2 hours from the North Carolina State Board of Elections is that we did not surpass that voter turnout number from 2016. So that's also some new data to mark kind of the enthusiasm that we're seeing here across the state. So people have been feeling uneasy, but officials say they should feel at rest because the process is solid and the process so far, they say, is going smoothly.
Morgan Radford down in North Carolina for us, her home state. Morgan, thanks so much. It is nearing 4 seconds away from the top of the hour, 4 p.m. in the east.
p.m. out west. We are standing by for a briefing any moment now, we expect, in Delaware by Democratic presidential candidate, Vice President Joe Biden. At that podium there, we don't have a sense yet for timing. We know he's there, present, but we don't know when this will start. We'll bring that to you. Meanwhile, results still coming in, things still changing moment by moment with the presidential election. We're waiting on so many results. We'll take a look at the latest right now as we have it. In Wisconsin this afternoon, NBC News was able to project the apparent winner, Joe Biden, and that was a very significant call, one that we've been waiting hours and hours for. Wisconsin for Joe Biden, the apparent winner. Let's take a look at some others. The road to 270 now stands at 237 for Joe Biden, 214 for President Trump. Again, 270 needed to clinch this presidency. And there's the map as it stands right now, and you can see the gray states are still outstanding. So NBC News has not yet called Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, or Michigan. And right now, the Trump campaign launching challenges in several of those places. In Pennsylvania, that's one of them. Too early to call, with the president's campaign taking action there to try to stop the counting of those ballots that came in a little late. Michigan, I should say, came in on time, but are being counted post-election day. Michigan, too early to call. 95% of the vote in there. Biden holding a lead at the moment. Arizona, too early to call as well. Howard Jackson was just talking about how only 86% of the vote is in there. We're expecting much more to come. And then we can take a look at Nevada. With its 6 electoral votes, it is too close to call at this point. Biden holding a lead, a difference of about 7,000 votes there. In Georgia, too close to call as well, with 93% of the vote in. And do we have one more? North Carolina, too close to call as well. We just saw Morgan Radford talking about that and how that one may be delayed by an entire week. They may not even begin counting until next Thursday. Let's go up to Wisconsin. Again, NBC News projecting that state now, the apparent winner, Joe Biden. Cal Perry is there. He's been there all day and all night. Cal, there are challenges going on. What are you seeing on the ground?
Well, here in Wisconsin, what we're going to see is a recount. The Trump campaign has said they will automatically call for that recount. They can't officially call for it for another 3 days. And when you look at the margin of victory, hard to imagine that Joe Biden won this state with a zero margin of victory that we saw Trump win it 4 years ago. Of course, Hillary Clinton lost by just 25,000 votes. Democrats were desperate to put this state back in their column, and they have done so. When you talk to the Biden campaign here in Wisconsin, we've been doing so. They said it all actually went to plan. They expected to be down early in the night for President Trump. They were. And then at 3 a.m., when the votes came in from Milwaukee County, where I am now, the largest and most diverse county in the state, that is what put Joe Biden over the top. They focused on these urban areas to try to make up for the votes that Hillary Clinton was unable to get. As I said, now, Kate, overhanging all of this is this recount. Hard to imagine the pandemic, and these thousands of election volunteers are going to have to get back out there and recount these votes. It'll start on the county level, 72 counties here in the state. They will all individually count it. Unfortunately, that could take us into early December. Kate?
All right, Cal Perry up in Milwaukee. Milwaukee, yes? Milwaukee. Wisconsin, Cal. Thank you. I know it was Wisconsin. Kristen Welker is at Biden's headquarters in Wilmington, Delaware. As we've been saying, Joe Biden is set to give a press briefing any moment now, Kristen. I'm just looking at my emails and reporting from Pete Williams that President Trump is seeking to intervene in the Supreme Court case. I believe this is in Pennsylvania, trying to delay the ballot counting there. I'll get some clarity on that. What do we know about what Joe Biden might be saying, what kind of message he might get out?
Well, and I think, to your point, Kate, what the Trump campaign wants to do, anyway, is like that they want to halt the vote count in Pennsylvania. They also want to raise questions about and throw doubt about the legitimacy of the vote count in Pennsylvania. And so that is going to be the crux of that legal argument. And of course, we'll drill down, I'm sure, on the details with Williams. But I think that what you're going to hear from Joe Biden when he speaks just moments from now is confidence, increasing confidence in the way of having Wisconsin call for him as the apparent winner, starting to really build back that blue wall that he sees as just critical in his strategy election for winning the White House. And of course, you'll remember back in 2016, there was a lot of discussion about the blue wall and whether Hillary Clinton would be able to hold on to the blue wall. She couldn't, and ultimately, that is what made the difference between her winning and losing this election. And so the fact that you now have Biden securing on one of those states that President Trump won in 2016, there is no doubt that that is significant. And so I think you're going to hear that confidence from Joe Biden. I also think you're going to hear his pushback against the president prematurely declaring victory overnight, saying that he has in fact won the election. Now, his campaign manager overnight released this really exfoliating statement, essentially saying that words like that are dangerous and underscoring the fact that it's the Biden campaign position that every single vote needs to be counted. So I anticipate we will hear those types of messages reiterated from the vice president when he takes the podium. But look, the optics and the timing of all of this are significant as well. He spoke last night before President Trump, and here we are today in the midst of sorting through all of these vote counts and all of these things that are quite close. And here's Vice President Biden coming to the podium yet again today. This is strategic as much as it is about trying to get a message out to voters. He's essentially trying to control the narrative. On yet another day of uncertainty about who won this election.
It takes me back to 2000 when, if you remember, Al Gore sort of got stuck in the position of looking like a sore loser, right? That's how he was labeled by the George W. Bush campaign. They went out and essentially declared victory and owned that narrative and put Al Gore in that position of looking like he was just complaining. So I would guess that that's something the vice president's campaign is very much aware of.
Very much aware of it. I have to say, I have heard from Democrats and Republicans who said it was so smart of him to come out last night before the president, that it looked like a power play, that he had a message. It was a clear message and he delivered it. President Trump came out, it was about 2 in the morning. The president joked that that was the latest press conference he never had. I'm sure that that's right. And then, of course, he got very defiant speech that we heard overnight. And so the optics, as you know, when you're dealing with a situation that is touch and go like this, there are so many moving parts and developments minute by minute. These sorts of moments are undoubtedly aimed at trying to control the narrative, trying to take control of how voters are perceiving what is actually happening here. So we'll be listening very closely to Biden's tone, how much lean into this idea that he feels confident about not only Wisconsin obviously having been called the apparent winner, but other key battleground states like Michigan, like Arizona, and like Nevada, where the Trump campaign, as Allie has been reporting throughout the day, feeling quite bullish there as well, and feeling like they still have a shot in some of these states.
And Kristen, we're expecting him at any moment now. We've gotten a 2-minute warning a couple of minutes ago. But if we have the time, remind us, how much travel did Joe Biden do to those critical states, to that blue wall, so to speak? Because Hillary Clinton was roundly criticized for not, after the last election, for not being there enough.
That's right. Well, Joe Biden did about 20 fewer stops than President Trump did. That's a good way to think about it. Now, he visited Pennsylvania more than any other battleground state 14 times, including that final day of the race when he was in France and Philadelphia trying to drive up voter turnout. But some Democrats were expressing concerns that the state is leading up to yesterday, Election Day, saying that he hasn't spent enough time in these battleground states. So why is that? Well, part of that is because central to his argument for election is that Biden is trying to make the case that he's the right candidate to fight COVID-19. And part of doing that is by virtual events early on. Here he is.
Yeah, jump in and just say the vice president approaching the podium now.
Good afternoon, everyone. Colin and I are here to make a brief statement, and I'm sure we'll have more to say later and tonight or tomorrow. But let me begin by thanking the press for being here and thanking everyone else. My fellow Americans, yesterday once again proved that democracy is the heartbeat of this nation. just as it has been the heartbeat of this nation for 2 centuries. And even in the face of pandemic, more Americans voted this election than ever before in American history. Over 150 million people cast their votes. I think that's just extraordinary. If we had any doubts, we shouldn't have any longer about a government of, by, and for the people. It's very much alive in America. Here, the people rule. Power can't be taken or asserted. It flows from the people. It's their will that determines who will be the President of the United States, and their will alone. And now, after a long night of counting, it's clear that we're winning enough states to reach 270 electoral votes needed to win the presidency. I'm not here to declare that we won, but I am here to report when the count is finished, we believe we will be the winner. With all the votes counted, we have won Wisconsin by 20,000 votes, virtually the same margin that President Trump won that state 4 years ago. In Michigan, we lead by over 35,000 votes, and it's growing. A substantially bigger margin than President Trump won Michigan in 2016. Michigan will complete its vote soon, maybe as early as today. And I feel very good about Pennsylvania. Virtually all the remaining ballots to be counted cast by mail. And we've been winning 78% of the votes by mail in Pennsylvania. We've flipped Arizona to the 2nd District of Nebraska. Of special significance to me is that we won with the majority of the American people. And every indication is that the majority will grow. With a popular vote lead of nearly 3 million votes. And every indication is that will grow as well. Indeed, Senator Harris and I are on track to win more votes than any ticket in the history of this country has ever won presidency and vice presidency. Over 70 million votes. We're very proud of our campaign. Only 3 presidential campaigns in the past have defeated the incumbent president. When it's finished, God willing, we'll be the 4th. This is a major achievement. This is a major achievement. It's been a long and difficult campaign, but it's been a more difficult time for our country, a hard time. We've had a hard campaign before. We faced hard times before. So once this election is finalized and behind us, it'll be time for us to do what we've always done as Americans. Put the harsh rhetoric of the campaign behind us, to lower the temperature, to see each other again, to listen to one another, to hear each other again, respect and care for one another, to unite, to heal, to come together as a nation. I know this won't be easy. I'm not naive, neither of us are. I know how deep and hard the opposing views are in our country on so many things. But I also know this as well. To make progress, we have to stop treating our opponents as enemies. We are not enemies. What brings us together as Americans is so much stronger than anything that can tear us apart. So let me be clear. We are campaigning as a Democrat, but I will govern as an American president. The presidency itself is not a partisan institution. It's the one office in this nation that represents everyone. It demands a duty of care for all Americans. That's precisely what I will do. I will work as hard for those who didn't vote for me as I will for those who did vote for me. Now, every vote must be counted. No one's going going to take our democracy away from us. Not now, not ever. America's come too far. America's fought too many battles. America's endured too much. Never let that happen. We, the people, will not be silent. We, the people, will not be bullied. We, the people, will not surrender. My friends, I'm confident we'll emerge victorious. This will not be my victory alone or our victory alone. It'll be a victory for the American people, for our democracy, for America. There will be no blue states and red states when we win. Just united states of America. God bless you all, and God protect our troops. Thank you.
Vice President Biden, with remarks that were pointed, that were very clear. He said, here the people rule, it's their will. He wasn't here, he said, to declare victory, but he believes that we will be the winners, he said. Later said, we won the majority of the American people, talking about the popular vote, and saying once this is behind us, it will be time to lower the temperature, to unite the country, to heal. Let me go to Kristen Walker, who's been with us. She's covering the Biden campaign. She's at Biden headquarters. Kristen, this is the message that we've been talking about for hours now that we thought he might deliver. He walked that line of not outright claiming victory and saying it still needs to be verified, but he did at times say we have won. So he is sending a clear message that this is, he's putting a stake in the ground that this is now his election.
You're absolutely right, Kate. This is as confident and as bullish as we have heard Joe Biden on this election since the vote started to be counted. You essentially heard him walking up to the line and saying, once all of these votes are counted, he believes that he will be the victor. So not declaring victory outright. In fact, he said that's not what he was here to do, but making it very clear that he feels very optimistic about the vote count, about where it is going in these critical states. I also thought it was notable, without really excoriating President Trump, he did counter what happened last night when President Trump said that he believes he had won this election. Biden said, look, every single vote still needs to be counted. That is a critical part of our democracy. And then that final point, Kate, where you heard him really try to begin the process of saying that he will try, if he is in fact elected, to bring this country together, acknowledging the fact that the divisions are very deep, that the margins in these states are very tight, and that there are a whole lot of people who voted for Donald Trump. If he does in fact pull out a victory, this will not have been the blowout the Democrats were hoping for. It doesn't look like they're going to win back the Senate. And so he will need to address that part of this issue on day one. And he's making it clear that he realizes that that is going to be a big challenge if he does in fact go to the White House.
All right, Kristen Walker, stand by. I'm going to go to Hallie Jackson, who's over at the White House. And Hallie, I'm going to ask this in all seriousness. We have not yet projected many of these races that President Biden just cited. But if his numbers are accurate, if he's accurate in saying that they projected will reach that 270, is there any chance the President of the United States will concede?
So, hey, based on, let me keep this answer really based on the reporting that I have from talking to people in and around the president's campaign here. It would have to be, and this is again based on my analysis, an extremely clear victory for Joe Biden. There would have to be, I think, a mathematical improbability or a possibility that President Trump could win. I do think that the defiant stance that you can see from the Trump campaign over the last 14 hours or so is an indication that they are unwilling to budge until it is extremely clear in some of these key states that the president has no path to victory if ultimately that is what ends up happening here. And the way that things are going, Kate, as we talked about, as you just talked about with our colleague Morgan Radford there in North Carolina, as we're seeing with some of the return coming in, some of the vote count coming in from places like Pennsylvania, places like Arizona, Nevada. This is going to take a while. Days, a day, days, plural, maybe even into next week in some of these places.
So I do think it would have to be extremely crystal clear for the president to concede. Now, he has said over the last couple of weeks here, when he's been pressed by reporters, if he is considering, for example, if on election night he was considering a concession speech or an acceptance speech, that he hadn't been thinking about it at that point. But remember, this is a president who had to be frankly pushed repeatedly to acknowledge that he would accept the results of the election after spending several months working to sow doubts about the legitimacy of the election. And the election that, again, as we are now seeing on the other side of it, right, with election day a day behind us, was carried out largely as expected. A lot of mail-in ballots were received. The vote counting is taking a long time. Our reporting indicates no major issues with irregularities, for example, any issues with foreign interference, et cetera, based on what our Vote Watch team has been reporting out to. So that is sort of my sense of where things go. Obviously, as we always say, in these instances, the Donald Trump caveat here, things can change at a moment's notice, but I do think that the stance we're seeing from the campaign today is an indication that they are not going to be willing to concede too early if that ends up being where it is headed.
All right, Hallie Jackson at the White House, thank you so much for being with us. NBC News Justice correspondent Pete Williams is with us now as well. Pete, you've been reporting on what's happening in Pennsylvania specifically and the legal challenges that President Trump's campaign is filing.
So far, I think you can say that most of these legal challenges are about the rules or the structure for what's happening now, extending the mail ballot deadline, what kind of challenges people can bring, how closely can they watch the ballots being opened, all that kind of thing. It's all about sort of the rules of the game, not the score. If it turns out that the vote in Pennsylvania could come down simply to the ballots that were received during the extended deadline, that is today, that is to say from 8 o'clock last night, when the law says they have to be received, until 5 o'clock Friday, when the state Supreme Court extended the deadline. If you look at the mail ballots that were received during that period, if they could make a difference, then that's when I think you see the U.S. Supreme Court case is sort of sitting there, get revived, with the Trump campaign and the Republicans saying, that deadline never should have been extended. It was done by a state court in Pennsylvania, and their theory of the case is that only the legislature could change the rules like that, not state court, not state election officials. If that's the case that could go back to the Supreme Court, that could be the next, if there is going to be a sort of Bush v. Gore type case this year. Now, just late today, President Trump lawyers, the Trump campaign lawyers, asked to have the campaign intervene in that lawsuit, which I just think is sort of a placeholder to get ready just in case. We're a long way from there now, and of course, who knows what difference Justice Amy Coney Barrett may make on the role of that.
That's what I was just going to ask. I was just going to ask, with all your years of experience covering the Supreme Court, what happens if this does now land with this in court?
I wish I could tell you that those years of experience give me the answer. There's two ways to look at this. Number one is I think she'll face a lot of pressure to recuse because of the unique circumstances that brought her to the court so close to the election, the statements made by the president, all that. On the other hand, it does seem odd that somebody should have to recuse for what someone else said. We're kind of in a difficult situation, a kind of a no man's land situation there. But so far, it's all being duked out on the local level, lawsuits in Michigan, in Pennsylvania, in Nevada. But if it does come down to Pennsylvania, then I think you're going to see fights over basically every ballot. And it's this extended period, I think, that is going to be the big issue.
And is the court, generally the Supreme Court, reluctant to get involved in situations that involve state legislatures and state courts that have jurisdiction over their own election processes?
Well, the usual rule is that federal courts are not competent to make decisions about state law. That's the problem of state courts. But the theory the Republicans are using here is that when the Supreme Court in Pennsylvania extended the deadline, it violated the U.S. Constitution, because there is a part of the U.S. Constitution that says that states choose their presidential electors, and that's, after all, what a presidential election is. It's to choose the slate of electors who will meet as the Electoral College in December. That the states choose their electors in the manner in which the legislature shall elect.
Let me just interrupt you just for a moment, Pete. Stay with us. Michigan, on your screen right now, this is a very big call that we are now ready to make. NBC News decision desk projecting the winner of Michigan, Biden. Vice President Biden with 49.8% of the votes and 48.6% for President Trump. Again, that is a key call that we've been waiting hours and hours for since last night. Kristen Welker's been talking about the blue wall. We've all been talking about it. We've been talking about Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Hallie Jackson at the White House, we now have Wisconsin blue on our map. We have Michigan blue on our map. That makes it significantly harder for the president.
Doesn't like it.
Hallie, can you hear Kate?
Oh, Kate, hi. Thanks so much. We're just dealing with some tech stuff here on the White House. It has been quite the afternoon, as you can imagine, quite the last really 24 hours for President Trump here. Listen, here's where the race is sort of set up to go from here. The president's path to victory is the biggest battleground, right? We now, a day after the election, we are not talking about things like, we're still talking about the battleground states, but the battlegrounds really are the courtrooms in these states. We are about to hear in the next, I'm looking at my watch here, the clock, 4:26. In the next couple of minutes, we are set to hear at 4:30 in Philadelphia from some of the president's top surrogates. We have not heard from President Trump yet today on camera, though we have heard from him on Twitter. But his son, Eric Trump, who is a key campaign advisor and surrogate, along with Laura Trump, also a key campaign member, Corey Lewandowski, Pam Bondi, the president's attorney, Rudy Giuliani. They will be in the Philadelphia area. Why? They're talking about these legal challenges that the president is mounting. I got to tell you, Kate, we knew this was coming, right? The reporting all along in the last several weeks has been that the president, if this looked to be on a knife's edge, as this race is now, would be pushing forward with legal challenges. There are some, according to the RNC, some 500 volunteer lawyers, firms ready to be mounting these legal challenges just in Pennsylvania alone on the president's behalf. So the fight now is in the courtroom as part of the president with the campaign seat as path to victory. They're still looking, of course, at some of the electoral college map. You were talking with Pete about the legal piece of it. On the political piece, they're looking at states like Pennsylvania. I have to tell you, their confidence level there is very high based on the numbers that they are seeing coming in. They are thinking that this is going to be a definitive win for President Trump based on where the numbers were in 2016 versus what they're seeing now in 2020. You can see where we are sort of with the overall electoral map here, 253, 214, and the popular vote, former Vice President Joe Biden ahead of President Trump there. And I'm looking at Pennsylvania, too early to call based on our count. But again, the campaign confidence, they are also predicting that as early as Friday, it would be clear what's happening in Arizona, another race that is too early to call. One of the campaign senior advisors is telling reporters that they believe by the end of the week, it will become clear that President Trump will have enough of votes that aren't counted yet in Arizona to be getting over at the finish line there. Again, to be clear, the votes have not come in yet. The ballots have not been counted, and there is a dichotomy here, Kate, because even if the president's campaign is talking about how these uncounted ballots, the ballots that are still outstanding, could turn the tide in the president's favor, the president himself is insisting that those outstanding ballots should be not counted at all, that there's something inherently wrong with them by virtue of the fact that they have not been counted yet. That is an incorrect assertion. That is an assertion that is not based in fact. Although the president continues to insist that ballots he claims on Twitter are magically disappearing. He says that there are these surprise ballot dumps. There are no ballots that are being surprisingly dumped or that are disappearing or that are being found in favor of Joe Biden. Ballots are being counted legitimately and legally as happens in an election. So that process is playing out. It's something that you heard former Vice President Biden talking about in his remarks just moments ago there in Delaware, that process needs to happen. People urging patience. I have to tell you, Kate, the president's sort of misinformation that he is spreading now on Twitter has been labeled as such by the social media companies, but some of the close allies aren't happy with it either. We heard from former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, somebody who is very close to President Trump, who's in his ear, who is helping him throughout this campaign, helping him in debate prep. He's been here at the White House quite often, calling the president's remarks overnight bad political and strategic decisions. That, of course, is when the president came out and flatly declared that they had won the election incorrectly, despite that not being the case at the time. That's not the case now. But Governor Christie was concerned about the political implications of that. So are some others in the president's orbit, Kate. And so that's one of the things that I'm watching for today. If and when we do hear from President Trump, later today, tonight, maybe tomorrow at some point, if he will be trying to pull back or walk back some of those remarks. He hasn't done so at all so far, Kate. In fact, he's really leaned into them.
Right. Hallie Jackson at the White House. Hallie, you're juggling a lot. Let me let you go. Thank you so much for all of that. Let's go to Washington Post national political reporter, NBC News political contributor, Robert Costa is still with us. So, Robert, with the news that we just put up a few moments ago, it's still on your screen, Michigan, NBC News projecting that state now. Maybe not a huge surprise, but we are officially projecting it now for Joe Biden. And again, I said it to Hallie, that's going to make it all the harder for the president to, just in terms of the numbers, to find a path for a second term.
Oh, it's a significant moment on Wednesday afternoon for NBC to call this from Michigan. It's reflective of what we're seeing as the vote continues to be counted. Vice President Biden has not done a lot, if you look at the numbers, to counter President Trump's numbers with white voters in rural areas and ex-urban areas, but he's done a better job than Secretary Clinton did in 2016 of rallying traditional Democratic voters in urban areas like Milwaukee, Wisconsin, like Detroit, Michigan, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Phoenix, Arizona. And if you really want to step back and ask, why did Joe Biden put himself on Wednesday on the brink of being president-elect of the United States, it's because of mail-in voting in urban areas and suburban areas that is putting him over the top.
Let me bring in Victoria DeFrancesco Soto also. Robert with us as well. She's assistant senior CJ School of Public Affairs at the University of Texas in Austin, and she's a contributor. Victoria, we were talking, I don't know, an hour ago about the country and the number of people who showed up to vote in this election. It's something that Vice President Biden counted as well. He talked about millions of voters coming out. I think the largest number, not percentage, but largest number of voters we've seen in this country. And he talked about unifying the country. Can you project forward, if we're in for weeks now, days or weeks of fighting over counting votes, what's the path forward in terms of uniting again, or are we incredibly divided? We're obviously divided more than ever.
That's what is so difficult, Kate, right? So at this point, we don't know who is going to occupy the White House for the next 4 years, but we do know that at this moment, we are probably as divided as we have never been before. So I think this is something to keep in context. Vice President Biden, prior to election night, was thinking about the need for him to be a president for everyone. So I think in terms of Vice President Biden, he's laying the groundwork for trying to be a unified president. We haven't seen the same language from President Trump. So let's play out the scenario that Vice President Biden ends up in the White House. The question for me is whether we can heal, because I think so many of us want that healing, want that purpling of America, not just red, not just blue, but a purple America, is whether Mitch McConnell in the Senate is going to let that happen for us. This is going to be a replay of what happened during the Obama administration. So are the folks in the Senate, we know the House is likely going to stay Democratic, but that's really the question if we see a Biden presidency. And frankly, I have to admit, I am a little worried, given what we saw in the past this prologue, how Mitch McConnell dug in his heels during the Obama administration.
Robert Costa, this is a president who doesn't like to lose. He doesn't like to be in the negative column. He's very transactional. So does this just go on until every last vote is fought over?
It might, Kate, and he might not go away from the political scene, and that's why the Biden speech today was striking. A different approach than we saw from Vice President Biden on election night, where there were the honking horns in Delaware. Today, his address in the afternoon was somber, standing there with his running mate, Senator Harris, and saying he wanted to be a president, if elected, for all Americans. And he walked away from partisanship. It wasn't the kind of rah-rah, we look like we're going to win this, that we saw from him less than 24 hours prior to that. And that's to the point of, in 2021, if he's president, you could still have President Trump on the scene in the political wilderness, but rallying the Republican Party. And I was speaking to Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal today, a Democrat of Connecticut, and he said, history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. And the Democrats are now prepared for a possible Tea Party-like movement from the Republicans rallying against President Biden, should that be the case. And the dynamics will be challenging, to say the least, if Biden secures the White House.
All right, Robert Costa, thank you so much. Let me turn to NBC's Dasha Burns in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Dasha, you're on the ground, you're in it, you're standing in a place where they're actually counting. Tell us what's happening there today. 4:30 in the afternoon. How much longer will they keep going? Okay, they're going to keep going until every single ballot here is counted. 58,000 absentee votes here in this room right now. The people working here, these election workers, they have been here since 7 a.m. yesterday morning, and they've still got a ways to go. As you can see here, the tabulator back there is still counting some ballots. They're still working through. And then you see this group of people at the computer here huddled around. This is a process called adjudication. They are looking at any ballots that have any sort of stray marks, be it a copy paste, or someone filled out the bubble wrong, put a check mark instead of filling in the bubble. They are looking at those ballots, and they are deciding what the voter's intention was. And here's an important thing to know. The people who are looking at that, they are Democrats and they are Republicans, and they are working through each of those challenges together. And that's part of the reason this process is taking some time. It's slow, it's methodical, and as you can see, it's transparent. The Trump campaign is announcing a lawsuit trying to stop the counting of these ballots because they did not get meaningful access to locations to observe the process. Well, what I've seen here is there have been a lot of people here observing what is going on. I'm going to take you this way with me. We have a stack of ballots here that have already been counted. They are getting really close here to Grand Rapids. Hopes to announce results here today. And let me tell you, Kent County is an important area. It has been traditionally a Republican stronghold. A Democrat has only won this county once in half a century. That was Barack Obama in 2008. And right now, Donald Trump is ahead here by about 12,000 votes. But in this room, we have 58,000, and we know that Democrats tend to heavily favor mail-in ballots. So Joe Biden looking pretty good here in Kent County right now. All right, Dasha Burns in Michigan. Let's jump over to Wisconsin real quick before we wrap up here. Wisconsin Attorney General Josh Paul is with us. Just give me your outlook for the evening as we head into evening hours. What will happen in your state of Wisconsin?
Well, Wisconsin was called for Vice President Biden. The Trump campaign has indicated that they may file a request for a recount, and if that happens, that's something we're used to dealing with in Wisconsin. We had a recount following the 2016 presidential election, and I'm confident that any recount we have will show that the results in Wisconsin are very consistent with the unofficial results we've received. We're used to close elections, and we have a safe, secure, reliable process, and I think any recount will demonstrate that.
How likely is a recount, which will take, I gather, days, I don't know, how likely is a recount to change the outcome?
It's extremely unlikely given the margin here. There's a Wisconsin law that says if you're within 0.25 percentage points, the state will pay for a recount. If it's within 1 percentage point, you can request your own, but you have to pay for it then. But the margin we have in Wisconsin is 20,000 plus votes. And what we see with recounts is hundreds of votes change, not anything like the 20,000 vote margin.
13-day deadline as I have it for Wisconsin to do the recount, is that right? And can it be quicker than that? Could you have a recount done within days?
The first thing that has to happen is the results actually need to be certified. So once that happens, then there's no request. And then the clerks move as quickly as they can get those ballots recounted. Again, we did that for the last presidential election. They went smoothly. And my expectation is that it will go smoothly again.
So we're looking at a couple of weeks before it could be over?
Potentially, but we have unofficial results now, and absent some sort of error in the data that's unexpected, given the 20,000 vote margin, we have a pretty clear sense of what the result is here.
Are you surprised by the move by the Trump campaign? It doesn't seem like anyone's surprised that we will actually take it.
They certainly indicated before the election took place that they were going to do this, but it's important to note that this is the same basic election system that we have had in place for years and years and years. It's been tested, it's been proven to be reliable. It's the same system that resulted in Donald Trump winning Wisconsin in 2016. The outcome appears to be different, at least in Wisconsin, in this election. And ultimately, I'm confident that the voice of the people is going to be reflected in the person who's elected as their next president.
Josh Paul, the Attorney General of the state of Wisconsin, with us. Josh, thank you so much for being with us. It has been nearly 24 hours now that we've been on the air here on NBC News with our special coverage of the Decision 2020 election. We're going to have much more tonight on NBC Nightly News with Lester Holt and primetime coverage later on. I'm Kate Snell. For all of us at NBC News, thank you for watching. The second test proves conclusively that Trump and Hillary cheerleading. And you know, I will listen to you. The only thing I ever questioned the accuracy of your movement. I'm so glad that you. I know what courage it takes for moving forward.
1時40分中途半端な時間で、NBC も普通のチャンネルに変わりまして、KTLA はまだニュースをやっています。
In today's Health Smart, new AI technology can detect COVID-19 in people by listening to their cough. Researchers at MIT created an AI model that analyzes the sound of people's cough and can detect subtle changes that are not detectable with the naked eye or ear. The AI studied 200,000 intentional coughs that participants submitted online. The algorithm looked at vocal cord strength, lung and respiratory performance, and muscular degradation. It was able to identify 98.5% of people who tested positive and 100% of people who were positive but were asymptomatic.
With election results still being determined, Americans are on edge. A recent study found 70% of those surveyed said elections are a significant source of stress. Here's how to battle any anxiety. Prepare mentally for the reality of waiting for those election results. Focus on your stress-busting activities, things like eating healthy and getting exercise. And take some time to unplug from the news, except when we're on, and social media, and look for signs of hope even if your candidate is not winning. Earwax could reveal whether you are stressed or depressed. Researchers in the UK discovered that earwax is one of the better indicators of cortisol levels, which is a hormone linked to stress or depression. They developed a device that can be used at home to analyze samples quickly and effectively. Until now, the most common way to measure cortisol levels was through hair samples, but experts say cortisol levels in earwax are more stable, making it possible to get a better test.
All right, just ahead, why Twitter is flagging one of President Trump's tweets today.
Plus, realizing the rainbow, a handful of candidates make LGBT history. We'll explain.
Then, betting on the ballots, an online gambling giant weighs the odds of who will win the White House. Is it President Trump or Joe Biden?
Then protection at the polls. We went into yesterday with big concerns of election interference, even vote hacking, but did any of that actually happen?
This portion of the news sponsored by Owen, bringing trust and simplicity to both real estate and mortgage.
Look, 50 year fixed, 1.99%, 2.1%.
So we should refi now with Owen.
We just call 8332-OWNY or go online to OWNY.
$100% beef. Try my $5.99 chili cheeseburger combo. It's pretty delicious. HealthNet provides coverage for every stage of life, and that's good. Especially if you're eligible for Medicare and live in Southern California, because it's time to choose your Medicare plan. And HealthNet can help. Just call 1-844-727-0537 today to request your free information. With HealthNet, you get all the benefits you need to take care of yourself, like Part D prescription drug coverage, dental, vision, hearing, gym membership, transportation, and more, without all the costs of original Medicare, including $0 copays on primary care visits and $0 copays on select prescription drugs, all for a $0 monthly premium and $0 deductible. Enrollment ends December 7th, so call today, 1-844-727-0537. That's 1-844-727-0537. for your free information guide. With HealthNet, coverage for every stage of life.
Did you know that 70% of your immune system is located in your gut? To boost your immune system, try Align Gut Health and Immunity Support. Align's quality probiotic strain adds more good bacteria to your gut to help strengthen your immunity. Try Align today.
Hello, how can I? Sore throat pain? Try new Vicks Vapor Cool Drops and Honey Lemon Chill for a fast-acting rush of relief like you've never tasted in. Vicks Vapor Cool Drops, now with Honey Lemon Chill. 100% beef and hearty chili. Try my $5.99 chili cheeseburger combo. It's pretty delicious.
It is my mission as coroner to speak for the dead so that I can protect the living.
On Earth in the past, we caused a lot of problems for a lot of people.
And I like being a problem.
Coroner. New episode 299 on KTLA 5 the CW.
Take 5 to care with a Life and Night virtual walk. Join the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society for a virtual walk to celebrate and honor those touched by cancer. Leave a life that cures cancer. Saturday, November 7th. Register at lifeandnight.org. Well, history was made for LGBTQ individuals this election. Delaware Democrat Sarah McBride will become the nation's first transgender state senator. She won with 73% of the vote. Turning to New York, more groundbreaking wins as Richie Torres and Mondaire Jones become the first black gay men elected to the United States Congress. Torres won New York's 16th district in the Bronx. Jones will represent Westchester and Rockland County.
An overseas betting website is now giving Joe Biden an 82% chance of winning the White House. That is nearly an 18% increase since just yesterday. On the site called Election Betting Odds, the number is more than other betting sites around the world. Predictions are made in betting markets outside the U.S. because it is illegal for Americans to bet on a U.S. election. Another city bans facial recognition, and Twitter labels one of President Trump's tweets as misleading.
Rich DeMuro explains it all in today's Tech War.
Here's what's happening in the tech world. Twitter has added yet another warning to one of President Trump's tweets. The tweet was sent out last night and said, "We are up big, but they are trying to steal the election." Then went on to say that votes can't be cast after the polls close. Twitter says some of the content in the tweet is misleading and has made it impossible to reply, like, or retweet the president's words without adding a comment. Meanwhile, 2 carefully worded tweets from the candidates use the word win, but don't declare outright victory in the election. Those are still available without restrictions. All right, so how did voting go? Well, technically speaking, it seemed to happen without a major hitch. There are no reports of major hacks, social media disruptions, or equipment failures. Now, there were some minor issues, including electronic poll book failures in Ohio and voting machine outages in Georgia, but officials quickly switched to paper ballots in both instances. Other glitches include a Texas hub for voting results temporarily going down, but overall, the Department of Homeland Security says they saw no compromises in the process. Portland, Maine is the latest city to ban facial recognition. Voters there passed a new measure that strengthens an existing ban on the use of the technology by law enforcement and public officials. The ban lasts for at least 5 years. Portland, Maine joins Portland, Oregon, Boston, San Francisco, and Oakland, cities which all have some sort of facial recognition ban in place. Here in Los Angeles, the police commission recently said it would review its use of facial recognition software after a report revealed it's been used nearly 30,000 times by the LAPD since 2009. That's what's happening in the tech world. I'm Rich DeMuro. Back to you.
All right, let's check in with Ty Goldberg and talk about the sunshine out there.
Yes, and warm temperatures for many of our Inland Valley areas this afternoon as well. Good afternoon, everybody, from Long Beach, where we're looking at plenty of sunshine. The current temperature there, a nice warm 80 degrees. Then we'll go to the San Fernando Valley. Here's where we're looking at the results of the offshore flow. 93 there, 88 to Ontario and Riverside.
really warm at about 93. And look at the 24-hour temperature change, quite impressive. In Riverside, it is 15 degrees warmer at this hour than it was yesterday on Tuesday afternoon. 13 degrees warmer from San Bernardino. 8 to 9 degrees warmer from the basin all the way in towards the Van Nuys area. Taking a look at the winds, we're looking at the offshore flow. That's why we're seeing these warmer temperatures courtesy of the weak Santa Ana wind. As we look at the wind feature count, we'll start to see those winds bumping up a little bit as we make our way towards tomorrow. This is about the midday, and those winds are stronger because the offshore flow will be stronger tomorrow. So temperatures will be about 3 to 5 degrees warmer as we make our way towards your Thursday afternoon. And then we make our way into Friday, and things really begin to switch up. So first and foremost, you're looking at this counterclockwise rotation of coastal eddies. So we'll start to see a little bit more of the marine layer. Temperatures will begin to decline from the cold air coming from the northerly direction. And then instead of an offshore flow of strong winds, we're looking at a strong onshore flow as we see the first of two systems begin to move on Southern California, giving our mountain communities some winds up to 40, 45 miles per hour. On top of that, wet weather chances as we head towards the weekend. We'll see Friday bringing us that cold air, mixing it up with the moisture. As we head through the day on Saturday, you can see shower chances. The Tehachapi's pick up some snow chances. Then behind it, colder air begins to move into central, northern, southern California. And look at all that snowfall that can make its way through the Sierra all the way out towards southern Nevada and towards Utah as well. So really interesting weather patterns because we're seeing a warm day today, warmer tomorrow as downtown should go to about 90 degrees. Temperatures will drastically fall by Friday into the low 70s. So here comes the shower chances, and it's going to be a cool weekend here in Southern California, low to mid-60s for downtown. Up to the mountains, we're looking at snow shower chances as we head into that weekend. It's cold overnight lows, anywhere from about 12 to 15 degrees. High desert also going from some warm 80s to the 50s as we head into the weekend with some shower chances. Back to you.
So here on the KTLA 5 News at 1, people across America understandably nervous today.
But someone is having the best day ever. Sweet celebration that will help you surely crack a smile. That's next.
It's Veterans Day sale. Save up to 50% off. Get 12 months of interest-free financing. And to honor their service, we're giving a special discount to every veteran, active duty military, and first responders during our Veterans Day sale. No one plans on having an accident. That morning happened to me. After the fall, I had so many questions. I gotta call the Barnes firm. And that is the best call I could have made.
What's keeping you from a better Medicare Advantage experience?
This is the Anthem plan.
We're here to make your life easier.
We will be there when you have a need.
We cover your prescriptions. We cover your doctor. We cover your hospital. You only need one plan. Get comprehensive coverage, including many $0 copay, with more extras and award-winning service. Expect more from your Medicare Advantage plan. Look for the 2021 benefits brochure in the mail or online. For a better Medicare Advantage experience, call Stan or your local agent today.
What information? The last few months have been tough on all of us. But as we head down this road to recovery, Mason's focus remains on providing the highest quality service at the lowest possible price. Whether you're looking for a new garage door from $5.99 or need your existing door repaired, we can provide the service you need, all from a safe social distance. And to help everyone that needs repairs, we're still waiving our $99 24-point inspection. Operators are standing by 24/7 to help. Call now.
Ready or not, here I come. Gillette ProGlide and ProGlide Gel. 5 blades and a pivoting flex ball designed to get virtually every hair on the first stroke while washing away dirt and oil. So you're ready for the day with a clean shave and a clean face. Ready or not, here I come.
If you or a loved one has been injured in an auto accident, you need a professional on your side to make sure you get every penny you're entitled to. That's what we do at the law offices of Larry H. Parker to protect the rights of automobile accident victims for more than 35 years. We've been successful in 95% of our cases, and we've recovered more than $2 billion for our clients. That's why we've been the #1 accident law firm in Southern California for decades. We'll fight for you. Hablamos español.
Guessing an APR, real or fake news? Real. Info Loans offers a 1.99% APR fixed rate home loan. Call 800-918-9200. Info Loans. Borrow smart.
Coming up on the KTLA 5 News starting at 3 o'clock, in danger and under the influence. Watch as deputies race to rescue an alleged DUI driver trapped in a burning car.
Plus, Lori Laughlin's prison sentence is off to a rough start while the actress is reportedly a wreck behind bars.
And he thought he would have to sacrifice his vote for a life-saving operation. How one Cedars-Sinai patient was able to make his voice heard from his hospital bed. It's all ahead at 3 o'clock.
Well, becoming a teenager is kind of a big deal even in the animal kingdom.
And in Colorado, an important celebration is happening at the Denver Zoo. Tenzing, the rhino, is finally a teenager. Staff held a special 13th birthday party for the rhino and her cat, Juna. The two devoured 13 celery candles with peanut butter and apple slices. The zoo says Mama spends most of her days hanging out with her mini-me and matching her in a lot of ways, including sass and look.
No matter who you voted for, this is an election day win everyone can get behind. In Gainesville, Florida, one man says that he was reunited with his cat, Dimitri, who was missing for 6 weeks, thanks to a local voter hitting the polls yesterday. The person recognized Dimitri, or Beach for short, thanks to a flyer at the polling station and alerted his owner. He says he could not be happier to be reunited with his best friend. And we thank you for joining us here at the 1 o'clock hour. More news coming up on the KTLA 5 News at 3.
We will see you then.
Make your holidays happen at Ross. You don't have to spend a lot to give a lot. Use up the holidays and we've got you with the best bargains ever. Say yes for less at the new store in North Compton.
It's Dan and Tina. We love home. It's why we started cleaning another 70 years ago and why we still continue today. According to the CDC, cleaning is the necessary first step in any disinfection process. We use detergent and cleaning agents to ensure that your home is prepared for whatever life brings in. Whatever home is to you, we're ready when you are to make sure your space is clean and that you and the ones you care about most stay clean.
Homeowners, ready for some good news? Interest rates continue to drop to near all-time lows. Rate Plus is now able to offer a rock-bottom 15-year fix at just 1.875% rate, 2.14% APR, and a 30-year fix at just 2.25% rate, 2.402% APR with no lender fees. We'll pay your title, escrow, and appraisal fees. You can save thousands. Call Rate Plus now, 800-816-7655. That's 800-816-7655.
I was denied Social Security disability benefits. I know I need help, but I can't afford a lawyer.
Call Dr. Bill. He doesn't charge you 1 penny unless you get approved. Let's get started so you can start getting paid.
It didn't cost me 1 penny up front to hire Dr. Bill, and now I'm getting my check.
Dr. Bill is here. I'm both a psychologist and a lawyer. If you need Social Security disability or SSI benefits, call me. I know what to do to get you approved.
You don't have to leave your house. Critical safety protocols. They're just part of the career training you'll get at Northwest College. At Northwest College, you'll learn the skills employers are looking for so you can launch your choice of healthcare careers in less time than you think. From live instructor-led online classes to individualized state labs, Northwest College can help keep your career goals on track. Safety-first protocols are in place, and new classes are forming now. Learn more at trustnw.com. Northwest College. Train now for your new career. Make your holidays happen at Ross. You don't have to spend a lot to give a lot. Use up the holidays, and we've got you with the best bargains ever. Say yes for less in the new store in North Compton.
Relax. This is weeknights at 11:30 on GTLA 5. Today, why are you tripping with your brother? There's sister drama.
Get mad because you're stuck at home there.
Turns into mama drama.
I swear to get this boy out my face. So much sweat. Hey, that's the man. All you want to do is cry and go to your mom's house.
Ebony found a guy who treated her right.
I want to be treated like a blessed some time.
But that guy was her best friend's man.
I want to sell it for one night. What's the whore? Always the whore.
And with everything going on this week and still going on.
午後2時になりました。ローカルニュースすべてが、どうも、とりあえず選挙開票のニュースをストップしたようなので、第2部はこれで終了。午後3時になったらまたニュースが開始されると思うので、その時にもう一度再開したいと思います。